welcome to my channel. My name is David, and today I'm going to show you how to build this beautiful cinema and movie website using React.js. So in today's video, you're going to learn quite a bit of things. First, you will learn how to do a dynamic content animation, the background image animation, and also the watch trailer animation. As you could see down the bottom of the banner, there's a carousel. Once you click on any movie in the carousel, the background changes accordingly. You see the background changes, the content changes, and date changes. Magically, you will see the watch trailer video changes according to the one you just click on. And you can close it off. Let's choose another one. And by the way, down the bottom, the carousel is automatically moving, but it's also entirely swipeable. You can swipe it to the one you like, click it to change the content, the date, the background image, and magically the trailer video as well. So this part of the banner is entirely dynamic. All the data has been mapped into this carousel slider component using fetch API. So the data is not hard-coded. I will show you how to fetch the APIs from the API router. And also you can see, if we scroll down a bit, the next section of the schedule pops up. There's a very smooth and gentle connection between the banner and the first section. There's no clear cutoff line there. Instead, I built a dark background with this blurry effect. I'll show you how to build this kind of thing with purely CSS as well. So if we go to the schedule, we can see all the movies you're going to be on schedule is popped up here. And if you click on one of the orange button, it filters out the categories you chose. So this filter is not built by any third-party library. It's entirely JavaScript in React.js. I'll show you how to build this beautiful filter as well. What you can probably notice that when we scroll down, the header part actually changes. If we move back to the top, it merges into the banner part, but if we scroll down a bit, you can see the header shrinks down a bit, and also the style changes. It has a border down the bottom, so I will show you how to make an animated header as well in this video. Let's just keep scrolling down. To the coming soon part is another swiper, where all the movies coming soon is going to swipe around. It's entirely automatic. And also, if you want to fasten it, you can swipe it to the one you like. Here's a add to calendar section where you can add this beautiful movies to the calendar so it can remind you. However, in this video, I'm not going to have these features on. Maybe in the future videos, I will show you how to add items to the calendar. And down the next section is the block section, where you can see this beautiful blocks get showed up. And you hover on it, it has this brighter and lighter border effects that give a bit of a standing out. And down the bottom is the footer section, where you have all the useful links and locations and contact information to show to the user. The last bit of the banner page is the back to top button. If you click on it, you'll go back to the top of the page. Choose another one, the banner image changes. So that's pretty much the website is about and how it views on the full page. Not only that, this website is fully responsive. If we go to the mobile view, you can see it shrinks perfectly. Give the reloading, you can see there's a perfect pops-up animation for the banner page. Down the bottom, the carousel shrinks to a smaller size with the 3D folding effects, pretty cool. And it's swipeable, you can choose the one you like, another one. The trailer's working accordingly, 100% dynamic. The menu shrinks to like this with some dark background, blurry effects. Click on one of those, you move to the next section. And also the filter works as well. Try another section, the trend section. This one is entirely swipeable on the mobile view. I think the user actually prefer swiping more. If we build in the swiping functions, actually increase the features of your website. The block section looks perfect on the mobile view. And also down the bottom is the cinema section. Back to the top. So that's pretty much what we can have so far for the introduction. You will learn quite a lot of things in this video. So if you want to code along with me, have your React.js ready. And if you haven't installed, now is a good time to install the foundational settings. You probably want to install Node.js if you haven't got it on your desktop or laptop. The current version is 20.6.1, but this version is recommended for most of users, so I recommend you to download this one. I'm using a Mac. It has a Windows version as well. And also, if you haven't installed npm, which is the Node package manager, I strongly recommend you to install one, because you will have to use a lot of third-party libraries or packages in this project, and you need npm to help you with those. And here's the website npm docs, download and installing Node.js and npm, so you can have this part. Put this code into your command line, which is your terminal. On Windows is your command line, and you can have those npm installed. So once you have your Node.js installed and also your npm installed, you are ready to start this project. So how we're going to get started is that we'll go to the React.js website. For the demonstration purpose, in this tutorial, I'm going to use this command line code to start off the React.js project, which is npx create React app, and the following part is just your app name. So you can name it anything you want. So if, for example, we are building a movie website, you can just name a movie website, and then you type the front part. So let's get started right now. Based on this line, open up your terminal. I'm on Mac. If you're on a Windows, you will have this kind of thing as well. Just type in npx create React app, and then you just type in your application name. So we are building a movie website, so I just type in movie website, enter. So you choose a directory and you type in this code. It's going to build an application for you. It'll generate a folder in that directory, and once it's done, you can go to that folder. So I'm just going to pause the video for a while until it's finished. Alright guys, the project has now been perfectly built. So it shows you how to move to that project. It's cd movie website. So you just key in this code. Cd means change directory, movie website. So just key in that code, and then you just type in. You want to open this project probably with your Visual Studio. So if you have your Visual Studio ready, you just type in code, so you can have this thing opened up in your code editor. And if you type in npm start, it'll start off the project on your browser straight away, which is probably not what you want to see right now. So let's open up on the code first. Well, it looks like I made a typo, so let's just change to that directory again. Change to that directory. As you can see here, it changes to movie website, and then we're just going to open that up in the code editor. Just give 1 second for that to pop up. So now you can see this is the project you just built with React.js, the npm one. So in the folder, this is a React project. You have your source folder, the public folder, and node modules. You don't need to touch anything in the node modules. Pretty much that's all the libraries and all the frameworks it's been supporting this project. So what you need to concern about is this public folder and also this source folder. In the public folder, you will see the index file. This index.html file is the same as the index.html files that you encountered before. So inside it, you will have all your root code over here, and then all of the JavaScript that you write will be eventually embedded into this index file. Here you have your title, and you have the dev ID equals to root. That's your root part, which sources all of your JavaScript file in the end. And in the source folder, you have your app.js, you have your index.js. Those are the two files you probably want to concern about. And all of your applications will be built and wrapped inside this app file. So this is the key part of it. So before we get started building, let's just run this project first. To run this project, you want to use the command line in your code editor. So to do so, you probably want to key in Control and backtick to open up the terminal. Once it's opened up, you can just key in that code that we haven't keyed in before, which is the npm start. So once you key in that, if your project has been built successfully, it should show off this page, which is on your localhost 3000. It could be other, but more than likely it should be a localhost 3000. This is the front page of the React. So we don't actually need their page, so I'm just gonna do a bit of a amendment to their original source code. Say for example, all of these green lines that has been commented out, we don't actually need those, so we're just gonna delete that, and this as well. That's the key line you want to keep. Dev ID equals to root. If you miss that line, your code won't work. And this non-script, of course, it tells you need JavaScript to run this project. Yes, we know that. So the title, if you want to rename your application, you can do. Let's just say this is a movie website, and then we can rename it. If you save it, yeah, your application has now been saved to this name. So the second thing I want to amend is the app.js. In here, it has all of those code that has been pre-written into this file, but we're not going to use it. So I'm just going to delete all of these random code provided by React and just type in something to test out if it's working. Just give a h1 hello world, save it. If we go back to the browser, you can see we have the hello world right above the corner. Basically means that the app is working perfectly. The index part, for this small project, I don't think we have anything to do with that. However, if we put in the future, if we're building a complicated and a huge project, we do need to do a bit of amendment to the index file as well. But so far, we just close it off. And if you're new to React.js, you don't have to touch anything so far. You just leave it like this, which is perfectly okay for you to continue. So now we have set up our coding environment. We're ready to build our project. Normally, if we build a React project, we need a couple more folders in the source folder. And I'm just going to generate a new folder called component, because more than likely, you will use a lot of a repeatable component, reusable component in this project. Say, for example, the buttons, or anything like cards, or any banner, slider, yeah, those kind of things you want to reuse, you have to generate component for them. So let me just build a component folder. And the second thing you probably want to go, normally on the website, you will have multiple pages or multiple sections. It doesn't really matter. You use a single page or a multiple page. We always generate a page folder for us to store our section or our pages. So that's the two folders we just created. And if you have some static data that you want to render in your website, I mean, static data is the data that will not be able to change once you complete the project. Say, for example, the navigation bar, some static informations about your website. Under that situation, you probably want to store those data into a data folder. So let's just create a data folder for them as well. So those are the three folders. And if you have some static images that you want to use for your project, and you probably need a image folder as well. So those are the four folders we just created under source folder. The directory is very important. Normally, we don't touch the public folder, but there will be some situation we do need to manage this folder as well. I'll show you later on, but so far we just control the source folder. And now, the next step is to introduce the package.json. The package.json is the file that tells you what has been used in this project. These are all the dependencies. As you could see, these dependencies are built in. It comes with the React project. The moment you build this project, this thing has been given. So you don't have to touch about those. But what you can know about it is that you can see your React version, which is 18.2.0. And also you could see all other dependencies has been used. But for the successful project, a lot of times we need to use more packages to be installed. That's why I ask you guys to install the npm package before we start the project. So I'm just going to install a few more packages to support our project. Control backtick to open up the terminal. And once it's open, it's currently running on our web browser. So you do not want to close this off. Instead, you want to press the plus sign to create another terminal, which is on the same directory. And over here, you probably want to install the thing that's going to support this project. And the code is npm I for install. And I'm going to install a Bootstrap. Personally, I'm not a super big fan of Bootstrap. I probably, same as most of you do not like its button. You do not like its design style. You do not like the way it looks. It's absolutely okay. I agree with you. I'm not a big fan of those design as well. But the beauty with Bootstrap is that it gives you a perfect responsive framework. So normally people, when you create a responsive website, you have to cost you many lines in your CSS, either using the Flex style or using the CSS grid. But anyhow, it costs you many lines just to achieve that responsive purpose. But with Bootstrap, you could have it straight away. This is gonna fasten your project building speed. So that's why I want to install it. And other than that, what we're gonna use in this project, another thing is called a swiper. As you can see in our banner, we have a beautiful swiper down the bottom, so we're gonna have to use that. Swiper is a magic library that actually gives you all of those swiping carousels, different carousel animations. I like it so much. And so far, those are the two that we're gonna use. If we encounter more, I'll install later on. So let's just hit enter, and the npm package will install those two for me. Just ignore the message down here. It tells you some vulnerability. It doesn't really matter. As long as it can successfully install, you will see those two things get popped up here. We have the Bootstrap 5.3.1 installed and Swiper 10.2.0 installed as well. So those two are pretty successfully installed. So this part is done. Let's just close off this installing terminal. This one, leave it on because it's running your browser. Shut down the terminal for now. Close off the package. So what I'm thinking of to support you guys to learn more or get more from this course is that I'm going to share you this package.json file, down the link in the description. So if you follow along and you miss something, you could just double check. What will happen with React is that when we share files or share project with other people, we do not touch this node.module file because this contains heaps of documents and the file size is quite large. It will shock you around. But what we'll do is that we'll share people with this package.json file, because if you install everything inside here, this node module will be built straight away. If we delete that and we install everything inside package.json, this folder will appear again, and that actually saves a lot of work and it saves a lot of disk size. So I will share this package.json file with you. So once done, we're ready to build. So for this project, what we're going to have first, have a look at the browser, think about how you're going to design a project. You're going to have the header on the top, the banner, and once the header and banner done, you're going to have your section. So first thing is the header. The header is a page on a component. Well, some people say it's a component. Well, I would like to put it in the page. It's actually a key section in your web page. So in here, I'm going to create a new component called header. Normally when you create a component, you want the first letter to be uppercase, just make it stand out from the rest. And .js or .jsx because we are using React, so give it a special file name and then key enter. So now you have your component header. So to build a component, we need sort of like the similar boilerplate for that component to do. This kind of component, as you can see, function, that's the component name with the curly braces wrapped around, is called a functional component, which is currently the most popular type of component in React.js. With that, you can use the React hooks. In old days, back to probably 10 years ago, or I can't remember, but anyhow, 10 years ago when I built a project, we normally use something called a class-based component, which is deprecated right now. I rarely see people use class-based component, but it's still there. But the difference is between the functional component and class-based component is that the functional component, you can have a lot of advantage. You can use in the third-party hooks, and a lot of support has been given to the functional component as well. So this is the thing you should focus on. And in the job market, the majority of the job position has been offered to the one who can use a fluent functional component. So once we get into the header, we need to create a boilerplate like the app page. So how do we do that? There's a shortcut on your keyboard we can do, RFCE. So once you key in those 4 letters and you just type tab, it'll create that boilerplate straight away for you. It looks exactly similar as the one that has been pre-done in the app page. If you don't have this function, you just double check the thing that has been installed on your Visual Studio. Let me see if I can find it. There's a feature that you probably want to install, this one, simple React snippet. If you install that one, yep. Once you install that one, if you can't find it, just search this name in the search bar. Once you install that one, you will have this shortcut for you. As long as you type in RFCE tab, it'll create this component for you. So once it's done, we're just going to save it. So now this component has been successfully exported as a header. So what we're going to do, we want to show off this header on our browser. So currently it's showing hello world, which is not what we're looking for. So we're just going to delete the thing inside here. Give it a bracket. And let's see if we can import that. Header, start with the angle brackets, header. So normally the code.js will give you this reminder that this is where the header is located in the page. So if you just key in tab, it'll automatically import that component for you right above. and then you just close that with an angle bracket and a slash. So now it's returning that header. So if we go back to the browser, you can see the header that was is on, because we have that header that was stored in here. So the way that React works is you create a component and you export it. You export it basically means that this one is ready for use, ready for import, ready for to be called. And then you import it at the other page. This is the sole and key beautiful thing about React. Basically means that this thing is separated from your web page. It can be reused, it can be redesigned, it can be deleted, as long as you know how to handle it. So now we created first, we import it over here, and we show it on the app. This thing, once you key in that, this app will be wrapped and eventually showing our index.html page, which is the ID root. So that thing shows whatever you got under the app. You know the logic behind it? Yep. So far pretty cool. So we have the headers to be there. So now our job is to design the header component. Just quickly think about what a header should have. It should possibly contain the logo of your web page and the navigation, and also maybe you want to include a search bar and also the login button if you want to create a user page. So those are the main things we want to build under the header part. So let's just delete that entirely, because normally the header should be wrapped with the HTML tag head. So just give it a bracket, enter. So let's just give it a header. So now we have our header. So it's just like how you build in the normal HTMLs. With React.js, they just separate them into different components. You used to write things in one single page, like what I did in the previous video. Everything was written in one single big page. But now we just separate them out into different parts, and each part is called component. That's the beauty of the React. So in here, the first thing we want to put in is the logo. So we have that logo, and give the name cinema, or whatever name you want to name it. Or you have an image logo you want to put in here, that's absolutely fine. And the second thing we want to have is the navigation. So navigation is the list. We give a nav class. So just to something to pay attention to is the class. In the normal HTML files, it's called class, but in React file, it's called class name. It's the same thing. It's just pay attention to that. If you use React, you have to put in React name. Otherwise, the project will still working. It will give you the warning. The warning is pretty much about the React name. And inside the class name, you probably want to put in some list. And how many lists do we need actually? We actually have the first one, you probably want to go to home. And the second one, you probably want to go to your schedule. So this is our normal way of building the website. We just have to repeat these 4 lines. If you have 10 things, 10 items in your navigation, you have to repeat 10 lists. But this is not how React do. The React hate repeating. You just have to bear that in mind. The React hate repeating. So whenever you have a repeating behavior on your website, you are thinking about wrap it up and put it into a separate component. Wrap it up and put it into a separate component. That's the key things to remember in React.js. So we don't build the list and repeat it over here. What we're going to do, we're going to build a component and wrap this thing around. So what we do here is in the component folder, we build a new file, and we call this file nav list item .jsx, and enter. So that thing actually is going to hold our list item, and then we export our list item over here, import it over here. So that's how it works. So let's just go to that. Remember the boilerplate I just showed you, rfce, enter, it'll give you that. So what we want to actually do is we're going to create our list over here and export it. So delete whatever has been given for you, we're not going to use that, and put in the thing we're actually going to build. So that's going to be a list, container angle, that. So that's pretty much what we want to have. And here we probably want to have the home. Just type it out for now. So that's just one line. We do not repeat that. Very soon I will show you how the thing's going to work in a repetitive way. Save that. we already exported, give it that, and then we're going to import it over here. So here we do not type in that list anymore. What we're going to do is that nav list item, it'll remind you, is that one you're trying to import? It'll ask you that question, dot component. You just check, yeah, that's the one I want to import, tab, and then it just imported it right above. And save. So that thing gets imported over here. So to test if this thing is successful, what we're going to do, we're going to go back to the browser. You can see there's a list item home has been showing on the browser. So why it works? Because we created a list item with the home text in it, and we export it, we import it over here and put it over here. It's a bit the same as you put the list directly into the UL tag. Hopefully I make myself understood. And the next step is to finalize the list item to make it even more perfect. And the way to do so is that we give a property to the component we just created. You can give a property called nav, and the thing we probably want to put in is the name of it. So we give it a name. Let's say we just put in, give it a name equals to, let's just put home for now. So now you have that. And then in your navigation component, instead of hard coding this home, we use the property that we just created. Here we're going to do a thing called object destructuring, because we just create a property called name in the parents component. Header is the parents component, and nav list item is the child component because it's underneath, it's inside the header. That's why it's called child. And we just create a property called name, and here we take that property and destructuring it, and now we can use it over here. And here you just type in the name, save, and hopefully this thing works. And see, this thing still works. That home has been put into from the parents page. This is how the property drilling works in React.js. So one thing to take away from today. And some people might asking, well, this is not saving a lot of works because you have many list items in your navigation. You have your home items, and you probably want to create a second one. You still need to create a schedule. And for the second item to show, yes, you're correct. There's still repeating. How come this thing gonna save a bit of work? The magic thing is that we do not do in this way. We have to do in the data way. And what will happen is that since the navigation is going to be a static data, so we can create a file inside our data folder here, new file called nav list data.js. That's just purely a JavaScript file that contains the data for our navigation bar. And then we just enter it. So if we go to our data folder, open that file, I'm just gonna copy and paste in the data that I have prepared for you. Here is the data, and I'll explain. You will have 4 items in your navigation bar. Each of them have an ID. You have to give an ID for the React to work. And then each of them have a name, have a link. A link basically means that where you want them to go. It's the thing we put in the hash ref. And then each of them also have an active status, because when we click on the button of navigation, the color or some animation should happen for that to stand out. So we have to give an active status to indicate which one has been clicked on. So the first one, home, is default true, because when people loading the page, they actually see the home page first. So that one is a default true. The remaining few part are default false. And then we export the file down the bottom. So once we have that, we can use this data inside our header. So here we just go back to our header, and then we're just going to import that. Import our name. So you have the reminder for you already. You just tab it. So the data list data has been imported. So once you have that, things will become a lot easier. So ignore this 2 line. We're just going to write some new code down here to finalize our navigation really quick. Curly braces, you have to type in curly braces if you want to type in JavaScript inside HTML lines. So the beauty about React is that it weaves JavaScript and HTML all together. So you can write those two simultaneously at the same time. You don't have to have a separate JavaScript file and a separate HTML file. Those tools are combined perfectly, merged perfectly together. So now we're just going to use the imported data over here, and we're just going to map it. So we do nav list data dot map. Map is a JavaScript higher order array function that actually can handle all the things inside this array together. So we have 4 items inside this array. We can do something to them, to these 4 items at the same time using map. So what do we want to do with these 4 items? We want to turn them into this name list item component, right? We want to make a change. And then here we say that for each nav fat arrow brackets, we want to turn them into something like this. So I'm just going to copy that in. However, instead of hard coding that name, we're actually going to pass in this name. So each nav object, this nav represents each object. That's the JavaScript objects, each one of those. We have 4. So each one of those gets passed in straight away into the nav list item component. And also in React, whenever you want to use the JavaScript order function, you have to have a key in it. That's what this ID for. This ID is going to take place the key. So the key equals to nav. To access the property of the objects, we use dot, and then that will give you the perfect way of handling. So we do not need this 2-line anymore because all the data has been perfectly mapped into this component. How many components we have? We have 4 components. We have 4 items in the data list data, and those things going to be mapped 4 times into this component. So hopefully we can have this thing here. So because we pass in the property nav, we have to take that property over here. So we need to change that property nav. And here we want to show what? We want to show the user not the entire object. We want to show the name of that list item. So here we type in nav.name. Nav.name is actually has been predefined inside this object. And also in the ref, what we want to have here is the nav.link, because we have defined the link over here. See? So we can put it in over here. So that's how we basically do a navigation with the React approach. And if we go to the browser, you can see we have all the items for the cinema navigation bar ready there. It seems to take a bit of a longer time, but this is actually a more professional and more fancy way of doing things. I tell you the reason behind it, because one day you probably want to change something to the navigation list item. Do you have to change the entire page? No, you don't. You just need to go to these separate component files and make the change over here. And this thing will work straight away because it mapped into the component. And if you change the component, the new component will be exported again over here and imported again over here. So you don't have to touch other files. This is the beauty of it. When you're building a large project, this approach is very, very necessary. Okay? So this one thing gets done. Now let's do a bit of a CSS to finalize our header. The way to handle CSS in React.js, so I'm just going to build a new file here called header.css. And then you have that file. And same for that component. We're going to create a new file called nav list item.css. Just pay attention to the naming convention. I use lowercase for the CSS file, but uppercase for the React file. So it's just a naming convention for you to identify the differences between the two. And what I will do, I will copy and paste the CSS here and explain for you instead of hard coding every single bit. So what we're going to do, pretty simple. We're going to make a fixed header sitting always at the top with 100% display flex and a space between, so everything gets spread around evenly. We'll give it a bit of a padding, make sure it stand out, always stand out at the right ahead. So give a Z index 100,000, 10,000. And this part, remember when I show you at the front, when we scroll the page, the header gonna change. This is how the header gonna change when we scroll the page, but we haven't get to that step yet. I just put in the CSS for now. This is the CSS for the logo, and also we want to make sure our navigation display flags. That's one part. For the navigation list item, I'm just going to paste in that CSS as well. It just pretty much talks about how we animate those lists. We give a list style none, give it a bit of margin. We make sure the color is white because we're building a dark theme website. The majority of the text color will be white. And now we turn it into uppercase. And then we give a cursor point effect, make the transition smooth. When it's hover or active, we actually make sure the navigation item looks the same color. I forgot to define the same color at the right beginning. Let's just do it now. Normally, if you have something really global that you want to affect every part of your web page, you want to put it into your app.css. As you can see so far, the app.css, which was given by the React project by default, but these codes are not really useful for us, so I'm just going to delete all of this. These are useless. And instead, I'm going to put in our own CSS for the project. So here we go. We're going to import the Google fonts, the fonts we just used in the previous page, this one. For the logo, yeah, that font is from the Google fonts. You can search this name in the Google fonts and found it. I will put the link down in the description as well, so this is an easy job. And we'll make sure that the margin of the page and the padding of the page all goes to 0. Give the box sizing border box. This is the root part to define our theme color. I strongly recommend you to define your theme color at a single place, because later on, if your clients feel unsatisfied with your color or he changes his mind to another color, you don't have to touch every place. You just have one place to go, change the color, and your entire website changes accordingly. So give a bit of a ruling for our body as well. So save that. So now we have all this part ready. Let's see if the browser works. Yep. You can see once you make the margin and padding all goes to 0, the text goes to the corner, it touches firmly to the corner. There's no marginal padding at all. And our background becomes dark. And okay, that looks pretty cool. But it seems like we have just put the CSS for the list, but it's not working. One is that because the CSS file also need to be imported into our component. So say, for example, we built this header.css, but we haven't imported that CSS file in our header part. So I'm just going to import that. Import header.css. They are in the same folder. So save that. And what's going on here? Oh, I type in CSS typo. What's going on here is that you can see that CSS is working. The logo showing off, and also this navigation showing off as well. And we haven't imported in our nav list item, so we just go in there. So these two are together. Just go in there and import that. Nav list item.css. So once we install that, go back to the browser, you can see this navigation is now working. So far we have done some part of the job of the navigation. And then what we're going to do here, we have another search bar to be built under the navigation. So I'm just going to put the search bar into a separate component right below the nav. And in the component folder, we're going to create a search bar. Search.jsx in a separate component. The boilerplate RFCE, create that. And inside the search component, we're going to build in that straight away. I'm going to copy paste in. This is the thing we're going to use. In terms of the icon, there's a plenty of options. You can use the Bootstrap built-in one, the Bootstrap icon, or you can use the font awesome. The one I'm using is this one, which I have been using quite a lot of time in my previous video and coding show, which is the Ioni icon. To use it, you go to the usage, and then here you can see how you can install it. Some of the icons have the option for you to install via npm, but it looks to me that this one doesn't have it. So what I will do, I'll still use this CDN. Just copy that back to your coder. If you want to use the CDN in your React project, it's perfectly okay. You don't have to install everything with npm, but you just have to go to the index page. And then down here, right above the body clothing tag, put in those 2 lines. That's how we import the CDN in a React project. It's the same as how you do it in the normal HTML file. This is the normal HTML file. Eventually, this id.root, once we finalizing the JavaScript will be converted into HTML and rendered on your browser as well. So this is the thing we actually use. So we put the CDN over here. And then we have the search bar, and that thing should be working. So we import the search component in our header. Search, import it. Close our brackets. It's imported over here. Let's see if it's working. Yeah, reload page is over there. So the reason why it looks ugly is because I haven't given the CSS to it. So inside the component folder, we just build a new file called search.css. So here we're just gonna key in, copy and paste in all the search CSS. The main focus of this tutorial is about React, so the HTML and the CSS part, to save you time, and I'm just gonna copy and paste and explain. And for the search bar, we give it a width, give it a certain height. For the input, we make a position absolute. So make it expand the entire area, give the color white, give the border, and give the border radius. And for the placeholder, we want to make sure all the text looks white. And for the icon, this icon refers to this one, which is a zoom in glass. And then we want to make sure it positions correctly and it looks white. So once we've done that, we go back to here. Oh, I haven't imported. Common mistake. So just import it over here. /search.css. So this means that the CSS I just wrote over here gets used in this component. You have to import it before it can be used. And now you can see the search bar is working. It looks perfectly fine. So now, we nearly finished the, the header, except one sign in button. But that sign in button, on a second thought, is going to be reused all over the page. It's going to be used over here as a sign in, and also on the main page, we have the 2 button where we use the same kind of style as well. So we leave it to Dan. To build that theme button, and we apply it everywhere. Okay. So far the navigation and also the header has been completed. Let's now move on to the banner section. So closing off the few component that we just created, because it's taking quite a lot of space, and we're just going to leave the app.js on because we're going to use it very shortly. And for the banner section, in the page, we'll create a new component called banner or hero, the name you prefer. Enter RFCE, so that will give you that boilerplate for the banner. Once you have that, very soon you create that banner.css file. So these 2 are linked together. Even you haven't written anything in the CSS, you can also import it. It's just a good habit when you're developing or writing code, because later on you found a bug and you couldn't solve why it's not working. It's probably more than likely just typo, or you forgot to import something previously. Yeah, it's not a key error that you make. So we have the banner now, and then inside our banner, what we're gonna do, we're gonna have to show this banner on our browser. How do we do that? If you look at the browser now, it's nothing gonna happen. How come we create a component but nothing happened to the browser? Because remember what I told you? To make the browser show the thing you created, you have to put it on the app. The app folder will eventually be wrapped into that ID root document. So we're gonna have to put the banner right underneath the header. But if you do so, let me just try. Banner import. It'll give you an error line because React cannot have two components if you want to return something altogether. So what you're going to do, you're going to have to put it into the brackets using this angle bracket, opening and closing angle brackets, and put everything inside there. That'll make things work. This is the way. So what this means is that it's the React framework that actually allows wrapping everything inside it. So if you put this at the beginning and the closing one at the end, everything inside it will be the part of React. And now if I go to the browser again, it shows nothing because we haven't put anything in the banner yet, but it should be working. Otherwise, it will pop up with an error. React is a pretty sensitive developing tool. If you got a teeny tiny error, even if you miss a semicolon, it pops up an error straight away. It wouldn't let you go any further. So go back to the banner page. So what we're going to do here is that we're going to build our banner, give a class name banner. And also inside the banner, think about what's happening inside the banner. We're going to have our movies, right? We're going to have our top movies showing off on the banner, and also those movies are going to be listed in our carousel down the bottom. The background image is going to change, the movie content is going to change, the movie's release date is going to change, and also we have the trailer videos, the play buttons, everything on the banner. How are we going to have all of those things all loaded over here? If we hard code everything, we're going to be repeating too many times, like how we did in the vanilla JavaScript and HTML. If we have 20 movies, 200 movies, that's impossible to hard code everything. So here in the React, we're going to have to use a bit of a API skills. All the data is calling from the API routes. And once we have those data ready, we map those data into our component, like how we did in the navigation, where I give you a bit of a preview in the header. Remember this? We have the data ready, prepared somewhere else, and then we map that data into the component we wanted to map into. So that's the same logic. The same logic apply here as well. We have the movies data ready and have that movies data mapped into our file. So for this course, I prepared the data for you already, and the data has been prepared in JSON. So I'm just gonna copy that data for you into the public folder. Normally the data goes into, the dynamic data goes into the public folder. I'm just gonna copy and paste in. But the static data, if you do not intend to change it in the future, you can temporarily put it into the source folder, but it's not strongly recommended. But for education purpose in this course, we just temporarily leave the nav list data over here. But the movie data is absolutely dynamic, so I put it into the public folder. Here you will see one data is called the movie data. These things are written in JSON, as you can see. So to show you how we can access this data, we are currently on the localhost 3000. So if we go to localhost 3000, goes to data, and we check our movie data. Yes, right over here. So if everything is ready for you, it's like the same URL. There's the same API URL that you can see. I already prepared this one for you in JSON format. So we're just gonna make a request to these routes and fetch all of these movie data and map this data into our banner. So to make this beautiful, you can install a Google Chrome extension called JSON View. And if you have that installed, that'll make your JSON file looks a bit better. And the routes, you probably couldn't see it on the screen, but I copy and paste down for you to see it. That's the routes we used. I just put it here. That's the routes I just used, the localhost, the data, movie data. If you go to localhost, anything / afterwards will go to the public folder straight away. This thing inside the source folder will not be touched by routes. So this is like a default directory. And we're gonna have to make the call from that route I just showed you, and then fetch the data, map the data for the banner. To do so, we're gonna use a couple hooks inside the React.js. We're gonna use the useState hook. We're gonna use the useEffect hook. So those are the two hooks that we're gonna use. And also, what we're going to do here, instead of writing the component straight away, we're going to set up our state. The way the useState hook works is that it creates two things. One is a variable. We're just going to give the variable a name called movies. And then it also gives you the function called setMovies. These are defined by you. The name is dynamic. You can define anything you like. You can name the data, set data, yeah, anything you like, or videos, set videos, anything you like. Here is the part you put in the useState and give it a square bracket. Explain it in this way. The movie will be holding the movie that we eventually passed in. The set movie decide what's the status of the movie. Maybe we have one more movie, we have one less movie. It changes states of the movie. useState hook, inside brackets, you give an empty array. This is an empty array. This empty array represents the initial state of the movie. The initial state of the movie is empty array. The eventual state of the movie is that JSON file. See, this thing is in the array as well. It's in a JSON array that contains the JSON objects. Eventually, we will have all 15 movie in this array mapped into our movie objects over here. But initially, it's the empty array. So that's how the states work. And once we have that done, we're going to fetch the data for now. And to do so, we're going to create a function called fetch data equals to curly braces, just brackets, fat arrow, curly braces. This is called writing this kind of anonymous function. And we use a built-in way, which is like a simple way of fetching data called fetch. So which one we fetch? Here inside the fetch function, we're going to put in the URL that we want to fetch data from, which is the API routes. In today's video, we're just going to fetch from our local host. In the real project, you're probably going to fetch your data from another website or the API routes you build yourself. Have to be wrapped by quotation. Once you fetch data, that will return you with a promise. So what you can do is that you decompose that promise with then. It'll give you a response. The response will be turned into a JSON. So you turn that response into a JSON, and then that's another promise. You have to decompose this promise as well using another then. And this one will actually give you the data. The data represents whatever you see on this page. And that data, what we can do is that we put our data that we fetched from the API into our movie object. So here we say set movie data. Remember what I told you? A state hook comes with three parts: the initial states, how we're going to change the states, the final states. The initial states is an empty array. Once we change the states by adding the data that we fetched from the API into this method. Once we change the data, the movie will eventually become the data we see on this page. That's how it works. And then normally this should be sufficient for us to work. But just in case there's any errors during this data fetching process, we're going to do a bit of a catch. It's like a try-catch error. If we catch any errors, we're going to have to, so far, we just console.log that error. In real world, we'll probably want to pop that error out into some other place so people can see. Console.log the error.message. Yep. So now we have our code ready. So it fetched the data from the RESTful API routes, and then we turn that data into JSON. We know that's a JSON data. Once we have the data ready, we're going to set movie status, set movie state with that data. So the empty array will become the data array from the JSON. So our movie will eventually become the same as that data. This is how the fetch function works. It's a very typical and simple way in JavaScript to fetch data. This is not only working in a React file, in vanilla JavaScript, this one works as well. Just bear that in mind. So now how do we deliver this data, the movie, into our component? We use that hook called useEffect hook. The useEffect hook is whenever your browser changes, you want something to happen, you use that hook. So as soon as your page mounted, that's like the initial moment when people get to see your page. What do you want to happen on your page? You want all of those data ready on your page, right? So this is the moment you write the useEffect hook, because useEffect hook will work when your page mount. And inside it, we'll give a anonymous function. Inside the anonymous function, what we're gonna do? We just write the fetch data, but we haven't used it, right? So we use that data, we use that function over here. Whenever your page got mounted, you fetch the data from the RESTful API and set the movie status into that data, right? This is exactly what we're looking for. And comma, give the empty array. This empty array means every time your page changes, probably you're gonna call this useEffect function again, depending on the situation. Depend on what you want the useEffect function to work again. Here you give the empty array means nothing. Means nothing represents this only will be called once and no repetitive calling anymore. If here you put in any variables, say for example, you put in data, just imaginary variable, whenever the data changes, this function will be called again. But here if you put in nothing, basically means that it only will be called at the first time, and it depends on nothing, so it will never be called again. That's what it means. So the empty array is like a safe protection. If you don't put it, it's going to be repetitively called on and on and on forever. That's going to crash your page. We don't want that to happen. So once we have that, we should have our movie object ready. So now let's just map that into our movie component in the banner div. And here inside the banner, we're just going to create a movie component, div, give the class name movie. So later on, when we have all the data ready, they're going to be mapped into this movie component. So let's just create it for now. And inside that movie component, this thing should be wrapped in brackets. And inside the movie component, what we can have is that firstly, we're going to create a image place for the background image. Give the class name, background image. It has the source and alt name, so this is going to be our background image. The source, like what I mentioned before, all the source for the images are our asset, and in the project, those things should be stored in our public folder. I already prepared all of these images for you, so I'm just going to copy that folder in so we can use it straight away. And I spent a huge amount of time to prepare all these images, as I need to research all the movies and also crop them, resize them, and sometimes I need to create this PNG title image with the transparent background. I need to do this in Photoshop. So these images take me quite a while to have all the jobs done. But in the end, I will share you these images for you to code along or want to practice. You don't have to source the image yourself. And here we put our assets folder in the public folder. Inside the assets folder, we have our movie images and the blog images. That's for another section. So let's just focus on this one for now. And our background image should be using one of these. So for each movie, there are 3 images. So if you look at the API routes, we have a 3 image URL. One is the title image, which is the movie's icon or the movie's logo. The other one is the background image for that movie. And the third one is the preview image for that movie. So we got 3 images for each movie. And go back to our code editor. So for this one, let's say we pick one. That's a title image. That's like the preview image. We want to use the preview image in the carousel at the banner, so everyone can click on this and jump onto that image. And we also want to use the background image. The background image is in something like this, which is slightly larger, that can cover the whole banner area. So over here in the banner, this image is for the background banner image. And once we have that, the next part will be we're going to create a container. But we're going to use container fluid. This is purely the bootstrap thing. Container fluid means that you want to create a section where the section width take the whole screen width, 100%. And inside the container fluid, we're going to create a role. This is also the bootstrap class name because we have pre-installed the bootstrap at the beginning of the video, remember? So we can use the bootstrap framework, and that's the beauty I want to use from the bootstrap, which I found really handy and easy to build a responsive website. Instead of writing your own code, of course we can write code in CSS to achieve that responsive purpose, but it just costs more lines of code, more time, and something already been ready for you in the market, we can just easily use it. One row means one row. It's just one line on your web page, and inside that row it's been naturally divided into 12 columns, and we just have to decide how much column to each component you want to take. Say for example, all the banner, if you look at the banner again, what we want to do is that we want to have a content, which is the movie content. Here is the title, some subtitle, some descriptions, some buttons, all inside this area. And over here, we want to have the showing off date, the release date. And here is the play the trailer button. So that's how we want to arrange our banner section. And down the bottom, we will have a swiper, which is our carousel that you can have all the movies preview image under here. And once the user click one of those, supposedly everything should change accordingly. So the way the column works is that we're going to make a line in between. This is just a hypothetical. And we have a left part and we have a right part, right? So the left part should take half of the banner, the right part should take the other half of the banner. That's how we make the framework decision before we even start to write a code. Right. Remember this in mind, so go back to our code editor. What we should do here, we created the left half. div.col means column, -large, -6. That means that because the row is divided into 12 columns, so I'm taking 6 columns of the 12. That means half, right? 6 divided by 12 equals to half. So tab, and then that'll create that part for you. This means that on the large screen devices, this part of the div is going to take 6 columns, but remember that one row contains 12 columns, so basically means that this part will take half of the size, like how we designed previously on the web browser. And you can also make the adjustment on the medium-sized devices. It's going to take 12 columns, basically means it's going to extend the entire width, not just half, 100% of the width of the screen. MD stands for middle. So this is how we arrange that, and underneath, what we're going to do is create a movie content, like the title, the description, and all the buttons. However, let's just set up the framework first. Down the bottom, but just right beneath it, we're going to have the part for the movie state and the play off button as well. So that one takes the other half. So you'll see these two are exactly the same. That's the left half, that's the right hand half. So we have the entire 12 column set up. And over here, we just created the movie content. The movie content, the content, give the class name, tab. What's going to be here in the movie content? We're going to have the movie title logo image. So let's create that. That's the image for the movie title. Give the class name. And underneath that, we have the subtitle, which comes in the H4, and in which we have the movie's year. So this is going to be written in a span. Here we have the year. I just put in year for now. Later on, we'll put in the actual data. And we have another span. And inside here, we give it italic. We want to have the age. So here it's going to be the age. And underneath that, we're going to have the duration of the movie. How long is it? So in this span, it's the movie length. And underneath that, we're going to have another span which holds the movie's category. So that's our subtitle in H4. And right below the subtitle, we're going to have a paragraph. And inside that, we just have a movie's description. I just going to use Lorem, give it a 50 character. Should be sufficient for now. And right before, underneath that, we're also going to have the button for the content section. So we just put in div, give the class name button. So let's just put a button for now because this is need to be developed later on when we come to the button design part. So that's pretty much the content, how it's supposed to look like. And now we're just going back to the browser. And of course, you couldn't see anything because I haven't done a CSS part yet, but you can see those two images, which I haven't put in anything, has been sit on the left top corner. And the content, the paragraph I just wrote, it should be right behind this header, because remember we set a header text in Z index like 10,000. So this one is sitting on top of everything. So it's probably overflowing the things behind it. And that's what we do for the content part. And next part, what we want to do is think about it the way the data work. We fetch data from the RESTful API using this fetch function. And when the page mounted, we call the fetch function so the data will be loaded into our movie variable. However, over here, we want to map that movie variable into our component. These are just hard-coded tags for us to set up this structure. But in reality, all of this year, age, length, category, and description should be from the JSON. If you look at the JSON file on the browser, other than those images, we have the trailer URL, we have the title, we have the year. This year should be, in the end, put it over here. And also we have all the dates, age, length, category, and the description. So all of these properties and values should be in the end filled up over here. So that's the logic, right? We build up the component and we want to map the data into the component dynamically. But before we do that, I just want to quickly set up a bit of a CSS for the banner so it can look nicer for you to see the content. So first part is going to set up the banner itself. We give a position of relative, width taking 100% width, minimum height is the minimum we want to take the whole vertical screen. That 100 VH means the entire vertical screen. That's the minimum. You can go beyond that. The padding, on top and bottom, we give the padding 0. On the left and right, we give a padding of 100 pixel. Overflow hidden basically means that we do not want to show any overflowed items. And we give a natural transition of ½ second. So save that. And also, I want to give the banner a beautiful shade. This is a very commonly used CSS skills. When you want to have a banner that looks dark and everything underneath, probably the image have a different color. Say maybe the image have a yellow color, the images have a light color, maybe a white background color. You always want to write some contents right on top of that image. But if the image color is not perfect, that'll make your context or your text word looks very, very ugly and you wouldn't be able to stand out. So what we normally do is that we put a shade, like a shade cover, right on top of that background image. So this is the way to set up the shade cover. We give a pseudo element called banner after. So the after the banner, and we make the position absolute and set it to the top, left, right, bottom, all to 0, because this will mean that my cover is going to take from the left top corner, left bottom corner, right top, right bottom corner. It's going to take the whole screen with 100%, height 100%, and the background is black with some level of transparency. So once you have that, you should supposedly have a perfect shade cover right on top of your background image. And inside the banner, look at what we have. So far we just set everything for the banner itself, which is this one. Inside the banner is our movie component. So we want to give a bit of a CSS to that movie component as well, which is very similar to the banner. And also inside the movie, the first part is the background image. So we want to give a background image, a CSS coding as well. And then we're just going to give a background image, a position absolute, left top 0, and width and height take the whole 100%. Basically means that this background image is going to cover the whole screen with object fit cover, position center, right? So once we have that, the image loads in should look perfectly contained. So for now, we just try a testimonial image. Instead of mapping the real image in, I'm just going to load one of the image into this part to see how it works. Does it look the way we want? The way the React load image is not like the standard HTML where you can just put URL routes in here. It doesn't work that way. We have to put the image component over here. So on the top, we have to import the image object. Import quotation dot go back to the folder. Let's see, maybe we need to go back to another level. Let's see if we can find that. Yeah, we do have a images folder there. So what I will do, I will temporarily put one of the background image, which is the transformer one. I'm just going to copy that into our source folders over here. Just going to paste that in. So we have this testimonial image for now, just to test our design. And over here, we're just going to import that. Go to images, /that. So we'll give it a name, bg image from there. So as soon as you have that, you have the image name, you can use it over here. We give it the curly braces. Whenever you want to type in JavaScript inside the HTMLs, you have to use curly braces inside React. This is how the way they weave together. And here you just type in bj image, save it. And we look at the browser, it doesn't show that image. The reason is because we have set in our CSS the opacity 0 and the visibility hidden. This is going to hide our image, but we can show them off by adding another settings. So we say that we give a status for our background image active. If the background image is on the active class, we're going to show it with the visibility visible and opacity 1. Opacity means how transparent you want it to be. 0 means 100% transparent. 1 means no transparency at all. And we go to there, we add a class name for it, active. This is going to turn on this part of the CSS, save it, going back, and you can see that background image just there. And what I'm going to show you is the CSS I just did. If I take off the shade cover, take off that, and we go back to the browser, you can see this one gets lightened up. It becomes really, really bright. Somebody said that it's bright, it's okay, but the problem is you're going to write text on top of that image. If some area of the images becomes lighter, say for example this one looks pretty between white and yellow, and you got a text on it, it wouldn't show the text perfectly. So what we normally do is that we have to put a dark shade cover on top of the image you use. And once you put that, you can feel very secure because it doesn't matter what kind of image you choose, it's always going to be a dark shade cover on top of that, which hold your white color text. That'll make your web design safe. And this gives you a kind of a mysterious feeling that it's dark, it's blurry, and it doesn't affect the beauty of the website at all. So that's what this part for. So we have that ready. We have already got a paragraph. We have already have the content. And for the button, we can come onto it very, very shortly. And down below here, which is the right half of the web page, what we're going to do over here is the date. So we'll set up the date for the movie, creating a new component, div.date over there, and we'll give it h2, and that movie is going to be shown on, say, just give a random date, 15th of August. Give a random date over there, and that's our date part. So now we're probably getting onto the page of showing off this content. So I'm just going to create a bit of more CSS for that. So in the banner CSS, we're going to paste in more CSS code. So in terms of the content, we want it to stand out, so we'll give it a Z index to make it stand out a bit. Haven't shown yet. Let me see. It's right over there. Because I hide it. And on active class, it starts to show. So the way to do so is we have to give the content an active class for it to trigger off this part of the CSS, visible, opacity 1. And if you look at the browser again, it's there. Of course, I haven't set a color for it. It looks black. And we're just gonna give more settings for it. This is the image side we're gonna use for the image title, which is this one. And this is the color and settings we're gonna do for the subtitle H4. And if you look at the browser, it's there already. And the next part, for that H4, we're going to have more settings because we want some boundaries or borders to separate them out. So if you look at again, let's have the borders in between by adding these few CSS lines. These few CSS lines just to set up the borders on the left and right and give the border a color and do a better job for the italic. The italic one, we want to have a background color of the same color so that it can stand out from the rest. That's how we're going to do for the content. And for the paragraph, we just put it in. Also give a color white. If you go back to the browser, you can see this one has already been showing up, except the title image, because the title image we haven't loaded yet. But we can do so. If you wanted to, we just do a test. Let's go to that transformer. This is the transformer title. We just copy that image and put it into our test image folder. So we import this in our banner at the second line. So we import, that's the title image from // go back to the previous folder, and we choose image folder, choose the title, and once that's in, we're just gonna use that image over here. Right, go back to the browser, you can see the title image is there. So this is just to show you, if we hard code our website, this is how we're supposed to do. We're gonna have to type in every single letter inside our page. So far, we haven't mapped the data yet because the data is still holding in our movie component. So once we finish the whole pass, the next job is going to map that movie into this big movie component, and everything inside here should not be hard coding, should be dynamic according to the data that we retrieved from the API URL. And the next job, what I want to do here is to finalize the right hand part, because not only will have a date, but also we will have a play button, so we want to finalize all of those. The date haven't shown yet, so we give it a active for it to show. Haven't put a CSS for it. Let's just do the typing first. Underneath the date, we're going to have our play button, and which triggers the trailer video modal. So here we trailer, I'll give a class name, and inside the trailer we'll give it a play button. And this one like that. For that play button, I'm not going to use a text word. You can type in play here for the people to click on it. But what I will do is I will use the icon that we have previously chosen. So if you go to that icon, you just search play to see which one looks better. I chose this one, which is the play outline. And then you put it over here. So that will give you the play button. And underneath, we just give a paragraph. Just in case people don't know what it is, just tell people that you can watch the trailer here. Yep, we nearly finished. So the next job is to set up the CSS for our date and our play button. So here we got the banner's date, and I better put some name over here just in case we getting vocals and we lose it ourselves. So this is the banner date. Initially we set the banner date hidden, so once we turn on the active class, it becomes visible and all expanded. So the banner date, we better give it, we already set it, it's an active button over there. And we have that. Checking the browser, it's not showing. Let me check the reason. Shouldn't be a big reason. That one takes half the size, that one takes the other half. See it again, oh, it's over here. It's on the left hand side. I haven't been pushed to the right hand side, it's just sitting right below it. Yeah, we haven't set up the colors and everything for the date. So go back to the banner, we just put in few more CSS line. That'll manage how the H2 looks like. This is kind of a design thing. Firstly, we changed the text font. This is from Google font, and we give a color white. Text transform to uppercase, give a font size 7 times of the root font size. Make the text align center. And these few lines will give you a magical effect of the text font to make it look like this. What will happen is that it will, because we have set a dark background, it would actually make the middle of the text transparent so you can see through it right to the dark background. So these few lines of code is going to do that kind of job. It's called a text mask. This mask is going to give you that see-through effect. Very cool. And then what we're going to do is that we're going to solve the problem of the flex of loading, because this thing's still sitting on the left hand side. It's not moving to the right. Supposedly it should be sitting on the right because we already used the bootstrap thing. I'm going to double check that we installed the bootstrap at the beginning, but I forgot to load it in the correct place. So let me just load that bootstrap in our app.js file. Without that, this one would be working. So we have to remove the logo. We don't need the app logo. So we're just going to take the first line to import the bootstrap. This is the bootstrap min.css. And once you have that imported, this thing goes to the right straight away. As you can see, beautiful. And that one is done. So we haven't done the CSS part for the trailer. So now let's do the trailer. The trailer is still in the banner. So what we're going to do here, remember we set a trailer, give the class of trailer, and we're just going to set the CSS for that. Initially we'll make it invisible, and also the same kind of logic is it should be dot banner trailer, and when it's turned on the active class, it becomes to visible. So we have to put an active over here for it to show. Let's see, it's sitting right over here. Currently you can see it. It just doesn't look nice because I haven't put in the rest of the code. The trailer paragraph, we want it to grow a bit bigger. That's what it looks like. And also the play button. The play button takes a few design skills. This one. Firstly, let me put in this part. We want to make a circle and we want to make it flinking on and off. So when the user watch your web browser, watch your site, they're going to see something flinking on and off, that'll grab people's attention to click it. So this is what I have done for it. We set up the width and height, give the background color, make sure it stands out from the rest. Give the background color of transparent, make a drawback filter effect of blur. That'll blur is a drawback. And make a circle, body radius 50, and align all the things in the center. And we go back to the browser. That's what it looks like. So it has a very tricky blurry effect that'll hide the things behind it. And for the icon in the middle, it looks pretty small. So we're just gonna expand that icon, make it larger. Go back to the browser again. This one makes the icon looks larger, and I actually change the color to the same color as well. And after that, we're going to set up the flinking effect. The way I do that is to use a pseudo element. We put a before pseudo element for the play button. We set a position to -5 pixels on the 4 corners, and then give a background of transparent, give a border of 10 pixels, make it round, and let's see what it looks like. It's just a very thick border surrounded. Currently it's not a flinking because the magical thing happens with this animation of button. So what we can do here is that we put in the keyframe to deal with the animation of button. Once it's in, you can see at the beginning and end, 0% means at the beginning stage, 100% means at the end stage. We give the opacity of 0.3, which is sort of close to transparent but still visible. And we give that filter blur of 4 pixels. Basically means that we make the border not so solid, sort of a kind of a blurry. This will give people that mysterious feeling. And in the middle part, 50% is in the middle face, and we give the transparent of none, which is opacity 1, and make sure it blurs a bit more. And we go back to that, you can see, look at this. It's all flinking around, right? With that borders on and off, it's becoming stronger and weak, stronger and weaker. So that'll grab people's attention and interest to sort of click on it. But something goes wrong with this part is that it doesn't line up correctly. What I will show you is that there's many ways that you can do in React or even in the standard web development approach to align items. The typical way is to use the CSS. I'm pretty sure you have seen things before, like what we do here. This is like the routine way of writing things. Display flags. This align item horizontally and vertically. We use just content and align items. So that'll make things sit right in the middle and from the horizontal way and the vertical way. But this costs 3 lines of code. However, with the support of Bootstrap, we have a more convenient way of aligning items. So I'm just going to add a few lines in our class name to make it look better. Say, for example, in the play button, the trailer part, what I can also do is I add the Bootstrap way. The flags, this is the same as this. The flags means display flags. So these 3 lines of code also have a simple version on the Bootstrap. So we can do align items center. So this is basically the same as that one, align items center. And also we can do justify content center. So this is basically the same as this one, justify content center. So that's actually a typical part of the code. You don't have to write in your CSS and also achieve the same thing. As you can see, this part has gone to the middle, has been adjusted properly over here. So far right now, we're good. We're good on the banner page, except we're missing that button there. So what I'm going to do now is to add the button. But I want you to look at the page right now to see what's the problem with our page. I would say there's no problem. There's a heaps of problem with the current setting. First, we haven't mapped the data, but that's the final step thing to map the data. We must build the component first before we can map the data in. Otherwise, you don't mess your code around. It's very hard for you to debug if you haven't finalized the components and you map the data straight in and you got a bug. You don't know where the bug comes from, either from the data or either from the structure of your component. So finalize one thing and then do the final mapping of data at the end. The thing is that, and our code is getting too long. Typically, I would manage my page for maybe ideally less than 80 lines, but this is approaching that. If we have the carousel, the swiper underneath, it's definitely go beyond that 80 lines. If the lines goes too long, your page getting messy. It's not clean enough. So what we have to do is that we're going to do some restructuring. What we do is called refactoring your component into a separate file. This is the magical job and a must-do job in React.js. You do not write every line of your code on one page. That's the way to develop the website in the typical web development approach, where you only have one single HTML file. But here we can refactor a couple things. Say, for example, we have the movie in here, and we don't touch the background image. That one sits there is okay, but inside the movie we have a content, which ideally I assume this to be a separate component. So I'm just going to inside the component folder, create a new file, start with a capital letter called movie content. So I want to refactoring that things out into a separate component. And over here, we just RFCE to create that. Then, soon as we finish that, remember what I told you before is we need to create a CSS file for it, just in case later on you forget. Movie content.css goes that. So when you manage a certain component, you manage the component HTMLs and also the CSS all together. And over here, we're just going to find the position of it. We're going to grab it, cut, so there's nothing there, and put right over here. All right. So once we have that, we're going to move the content CSS as well. And we go to the banner. That thing's still sitting in that's the movie part, that's the background part. Yeah, from here is our content CSS. We're just going to look at a few lines. Those still the content part. You can see the content class in it. That's the banner date. So we're just going to cut off all the content CSS from the original banner CSS, cut, and move it into the movie content CSS. Save. And going back to our content, we have to import the CSS we just created, otherwise we will lose it. So import quotation movie content.css, and you have that one in. And right over here, you have the outsourced image from here. So we have to move this import of image into our movie content as well. But later on, when we actually map the data, this thing won't be necessary. So far, we just use it for demonstration purpose. Otherwise, you will never see a single thing on a web browser. Save it. But now we have nothing pretty much holding here. What we're going to do? We refactor the movie component out to a separate file. We have to import this movie content that we exported here into our banner. So what we do is movie content. It'll give you the reminder asking you, do you want to import this one, .components movie content? Yes. Then tab it, / closing your angle brackets. This one, double check it has been correctly imported right above. And I think there's another image that we imported. Yeah, that's the title image. Yeah, that's the background image, all correct. And let's just double check. Going to the browser, it works still okay. Everything has not changed. This is because we have done a correct refactoring. But the beauty of it is that you can see the movie component is just standing alone. So later on, when we map this thing into our movie component, it's going to be a lot easier. This is the component that we want to map all the data into, right? This is the beauty of the React. So more jobs. If we can do a refactoring for the movie component, we can also refactor for the date and also refactor for the play button and everything else. Let's just get on and do that. So for movie date, we're just gonna create a new component inside the component folder, new file, capital letter, movie date, JSX, RFCE, have that boilerplate ready, and then we're just gonna cut. So that's the trailer, that's the date. Just gonna cut that right over here. So we exported that, and right below it, we're gonna create the CSS file. Date, CSS. And then we go to close off the content for now. We go to the banner when we found that date. This is the date, CSS, cut, put it over there. And once we have the CSS, we have to import it into here, dot, movie date, CSS, right over there. And then last step is do not forget to import your refactored component into your parents component, which is the banner. And then we import movie useState, the second one, tab, angle brackets close. Let's see, yeah, it has been successfully refactored over there. The last part is to refactor the watch trailer part, which is this one, the play button and watch trailer, the entire thing. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna have this thing, create a new component, create a component called play button. JSX and RFCE, boilerplate is ready. Go back to the main page. We're just gonna cut off the entire trailer part and put it right over here. And we're missing the CSS file, so we have to create a new CSS for that as well. And we call it play button.css. And we go to that banner CSS, just find the trailer part and the play button part. I think these are all belong to the button, which is quite long. Oh, I missed that. It should supposed to from here. Yeah, this area, that's the above belong to the banner. So cut the trailer, put it into here, save it, and then as soon as we create that CSS, we have to import it and dot play button .css, you have that, save that. And last step is do not forget to import the refactor component we just created. So angle brackets, play button, there. So it's all imported properly. Let's go back to the browser. It's still there. Right, perfect. And now if you go back to the banner page, you see that the code is much cleaner. You only got this few lines left, and it's very clear to see what the structure of it, what's going on here. You have one row, the left hand half size, the right half, and what's contained in the left half and what's contained in the right half. So it's pretty clear. And the next step, what we're gonna do is that we're missing the button, remember? There's the two buttons over here and in the content. But now we already have our content component, so we just jump into the component here and we create a button right over here. So this is the place. The reason why I want to spend a bit more time on this button demonstration is because it perfectly illustrates the beauty of React. We will have two buttons sitting beside to each other. So if you're using the vanilla JavaScript and HTML, you're probably gonna write two code. But now we can have one single component to do the job. We do not repeat ourselves, which makes sure that your code is dry. And the React allows the component to be refactored, so you only need to create a component once, and you just call that component whenever you want to use it. So here, let's just create a button, angle tag, and main button, give it a class name. And here, that. In the button, we probably, for now, we just give a random name button, and later on I'll show you. Here's what you put in. If you're gonna have a second button, you're just gonna have to repeat this one. Just copy and paste down. So that's how we do it the normal way. So you have a button besides another button. But in the React, we do not do it that way. As soon as we have the component, we refactor it. So in the component, we just create a new file called button.jsx. And then inside the button, we do RFCE to create a boilerplate. And we just cut that piece of code into our button component. So we have that. And as soon as we have the button component, we're going to create a CSS for it, which is called button.css. And I'm going to copy and paste the buttons CSS here. So what it does is giving it a background color of the main theme color and a font color white, give a certain padding and on the vertical and horizontally. So to make it look properly, set up the font size to 1.1, font weight 400, turn the text to uppercase, and make sure you have a point cursor. On hover, it gives you a different color. So that's a setting for the button. So we import that CSS over here. And then down here, we're just gonna have a button. We just import our button component. Just be very careful, because you installed Bootstrap, Bootstrap have a built-in button component as well. So here it's asking you which button component you want to import. You want to import the one in Bootstrap, or you want to import the one you just created. Choose the second one, otherwise it won't work. The second one, and then close your brackets. Double check at the top, the button has been imported from the correct place. And going back to the browser, you can see the buttons there. So what else do we need in the button? And we're probably going to need something from the icon to make it look beautiful, and other features as well. Say for example, the button may have a different style, different color on a different situation. So how do we do a component that can be dynamic instead of a pure just importing and exporting? This wouldn't make it cooler. So what we can do is that we can set up properties for that button. So for example, we want to use the icon inside the button. We can set the icon to be dynamic. So here, the first one, let's say we choose a bookmark bar. This one, click it to copy it, icon that. So let's give another property called name. So this button will be named book. So because we want the user to book in stuff, oh, sorry, this is going to be a string, not a JavaScript object. And maybe we want to give the color. Maybe different button have a different color. So let's say the first one, we want to have a color of FF3700, which is our theme color, and we set up the BG color to be, because the first button, the background is white, so we can have all these properties set up for the button. As soon as we have the property set up in the child component, this is the parent component, right? In the child component, we have to consume these properties. We have icon, name, color, and background color. So we're going back to that. We're doing the object destructuring, and we consume those properties have just been passed in. One is the icon, the name, the background color, and also the color. So we have those things. And inside our button, we can use these property values. Nothing to do with the class name, but here, the button, what we can do, instead of hard coding the button, we can use the name of it. If you save it, going back to the browser, see this one changed to book. Because we put in the property value book in the parents component, and we set up a property for the button. In the child component, we consume that property and put it over here. That's what it can show. And also, we probably want to use the icon, so we put the icon right before it. Sorry, curly braces. And then we go back to the browser, you can see the bookmark is there. So this is how we can handle the button. Not yet perfect, because we want to have the background to be different. So what we can do here is that we can set up some default setting for the button. By doing so, we can say this property equals to, we give a default background of the background 37, and we give a default color of font. And that one goes to the the white. So you can have some default one. And this is the kind of the rare situation where we use the inline CSS in React, but there are certain situations we have to use it. To use the inline CSS in React, we put a curly braces at the outside. This represents the style is going to be a JavaScript object. And inside that, we write the JavaScript object with another curly braces. So we set the color, color. This means that the color in style equals to the color we pass in here as the variable, right? And then we have the background, BG color. The background in CSS style will be equal to the background color we take over here. So that's how you set up your button. And we're going back and see this one has changes. Why is that? Because here we set the color to the theme color, the background to white. And of course, it'll change this accordingly. And remember, we have another button that's right below it in different style. So we're just going to import that button again. You don't have to rewrite the button component. You just import it, use it straight away. Make sure that we import it correctly. So in this button, we will set up the icon. So that's the add to my list button. So we just found the add. Going back, that's over there. And the name of it will be my list. Save. And then going back to the browser, you can see that button is there straight away. Yep. Pretty cool, huh? I didn't set up the color for this one, but it's still working. What is that? Because we have set up the default setting for this property, the background color is the same color, the font color is the white. So even though you don't put in any variables for this, it'll take the default value straight away. That's the beauty of it. But if you want to change it, you can rewrite the color and background color. This will override whatever you set at the default setting, right? So this is how we do the child component, and we have our major button for the entire web page. Whenever you want to use a button on your web page, you just import this component. You don't have to write any code anymore. And just like a practice, remember there's one place where we have that button to be used, which is in the header. We're going to import a button on the right top that allows users to sign into their user page, right? So we're going back to the page, find the header, and underneath search, we want to import what? We want to import that button. Since you have the button prepared already, you just import it. BU. Make sure you import one in the component folder. And there you go. So you probably want to set up some icons for it as well. And that icon goes to, let's say, sign in. This one, sign in, right? Yeah, let's log in. I just gave it there. And then we're just going to have a name for it. Let's say the name is a sign in. Let's see what's happening. You see the button pops up straight away. You don't have to do anything. This is the magic things about React. This is the power of how the components get reused everywhere on your web page, as long as you build it properly, right? So customized component we have covered up, and we close that off. The button's done. We close that, all done. And if you look at our banner now, it's pretty much showing what we wanted to show. And the only thing left off is the carousel down beneath, which we are going to build right now. We can't do the data mapping right now because we haven't done the carousel yet. Once we've done the carousel, we'll map into the background and the content and also the date. Alright, in terms of swipers and carousels underneath, I'm not going to do in the old way, like how we write in the banner and then refactoring it. So what I'm going to do is that we know that the swiper is going to be in a separate component. So once we create it, we can import it back into the banner. So why don't we just create a component straight away? This is how you upgrade your skill to the next level. So you think which one can be a separate component. You do not write it, so you create a component straight away. This will save you work and time. Otherwise, when you develop the real project, you have to write everything on a single page and spend heaps of time refactoring them. That's not very professional. The professional way is that you think which one can be a separate component. You create a component straight away and you import it. And then in the component folder, we create a new one called movie swiper and .jsx. That's in the capital letter, correct. And inside that, we just RFCE tab, we have that straight away. And then inside the swiper, we're gonna use is this swiper website. So if you go to this website, swiper, and get started, it will tell you how you can install it. npm install swiper. We have done the npm install at the very beginning of the video. And also later it tells you how you can use it. Just import swipers, import the style, and import the module on the swiper so you can use it. It's really handy. Everything's there. The document is perfect. In my previous videos, we have also done practice with this swiper, but we imported as a CDN. However, it does provide the option of the npm install, so we just use the more fancy way of doing that swiper things. And we have to import these things as well into our code. So in our movie swiper, what I'm going to do, first thing first, we're going to create a CSS file for this component. and that is called a movie component. Sorry, just lose that. Movie swiper.css. So we have those two open. The rest of the things are not related so far. We just close it off. Maybe leave the banner.css on, and maybe even close off that one. And as soon as we've done that, we just import swiper.css. So we import the one we just created. And then after that, we're going to import a few more things. Here are the things I'm going to use in this project. We're going to use the swiper component, swiper module, and also we're going to use the swiper slide. So we import those two from the swiper React, which is the one we installed. And also we import the swiper CSS files for the relevant stuff. And after that, we're going to import a few more things. We're going to import two modules. One is called autoplay. And we're also going to import the effects cover flow module from the swiper. So as soon as we have those done, it's time to build this section. Give it brackets. So since we import the swiper component, we can use it straight away. So we just type in swiper, and then as soon as you close that, it'll give you the closing tag as well. So inside the swiper, we're going to build our carousel. We're going to have a lot of settings. I'm not going to hard code every settings here. What I will do, I will copy and paste down the settings for the swiper and explain them. So pretty straightforward as what I was talking about. So the effect is going to be a cover flow, which is a 3D bending effect. It allows the user to grab it, so it works perfectly on a mobile phone. They can swipe it with their finger. And this one's auto slide as well, because it can move automatically without the human have to touch it. It's autoplay set up the time pace for the autoplay. You have the cover flow effect setting for that. You want it to be a loop. Loop means that it will loop indefinitely. Once you finish one round, it will start the second round straight away. And then that's the module we used. We use the effects cover flow and autoplay. You have to import it right above here to be able to use it down here, right? If you miss one of those, the thing won't work. And give a proper class name called movie swiper. This one going to be called in your CSS file if you want to do a bit more styling for your swiper. Okay? And now we have that done. Inside the swiper, if you look at how the things work, just do an example. Inside the swiper, normally it will have those slides, swiper slides. It's the same for the React as well. In React, we have to set up the slide. So, going back to the editor, we import the swiper slides here, and we're going to use it here. So this is the place where we type in swiper slides, and then we just close that off. Inside here, what we're going to do is that we're going to show the movie's preview image, and then have that mapped into our carousel all the way through. So instead of doing all of those hard coding or using some demonstration videos, I'm going to map those data in. First, set up the image source. Give it an alt name just in case it wouldn't show preview image. That should be sufficient for now. So once it's done, movie swiper, what we're going to do over here, down below the movie component, it's outside the movie, inside the banner, so just don't place in the wrong position, otherwise it won't work. We'll import the movie swiper we just created. So we have that the movie swiper, the third one, close it, and then this one has been successfully imported above. So that's how we do it. If we go back to the browser, you see nothing happens, but it didn't break. It didn't break basically means that we have installed everything correctly, and you can see there's an image on show icon there. Basically means the swiper is probably get loaded. It's working now. So the next step is to use the data that we have retrieved from this route, which is the JSON file like this, and start to do a bit of a mapping over here. Let me show you how to do the data mapping. First, we're going to double check if our movie has been loaded with the data from the RESTful API. How do we do that? Over here, instead of map it straight away, we're going to do a bit more JavaScript. We're going to say movies, just check that variable. Double ampersand means that if movie is truthy, we're going to execute the next step. Why do we check if movie is truthy? Because we need something, we need a movie to be a real object. It cannot be an empty object or an empty array for us to start off the work. If it's an empty array, it won't map. It has zero length in it. We want to make sure the movie is truthy, and also we want to make sure the movie length is greater than 0. So basically means the data mapping has been successful, the data trimming has been successful over here. And then once those two pass, we start to map. What we can do over here is that we show off this. We start to show the movie swiper, right? So in the movie swiper, what we want to load is we want to load the slides for each item in the carousel. And the slides, the data, actually comes from our movie. So we pass in the entire movie data over here. So slides equals to movie. This movie is this movie, the state variable, and this movie is the data that we retrieved from the localhost 3000 data movie.json, which we fetched when the page gets mounted on the browser, right? So all the logic must make sense for you to move on to the next step. Once we have that, we know that in the parent component, we take in a property, and in the child component, we can consume that property, right? So we're going back to the movie swiper, and then we consume that slides property over here. Slides, so we have it now. This slides is this slides, which is movie, right? This is how we pass that movie variable down to our child component. So as soon as we have the slides, what we can do, we're going to map it into the swiper slides, so we can have many of those, right? So down in here, instead of hard coding, I'm just going to cut that and write a bit of a JavaScript. Whenever you want to write JavaScript inside the HTML in React, you have to use curly braces to wrap it. So we call that slides property, which is the one above, and then we map it using, so when the slides comes in, that's not going to be an array. It contains every single movie object inside it. So for each slide, we want it to be mapped into the swiper slide object, right? So we map it into that bracket, into that. And now the image source is the magic thing. How do we get the image source page? Because remember, in our JSON file, you can see the preview image has been set with a URL, which is in our asset folder, movie, transformer, each one of those. So if you go back to our public asset folder, movie, you have this source image already. That's the routes. So we're just gonna use that JSON to pass the routes in it. To access it, we know that each object inside the JSON file should have the preview image property. So what we can do is that we access this property here, slide.preview image. So this preview image is exactly the property of this preview image, the same, because the slides come from the slides. The slides come from the movie. The movie comes from the data. The data is the JSON, right? All linked up together. Okay, cool. And we save that file. Then let's see. Magically, this thing has been imported, but the size is pretty scary because I haven't done a CSS part, but it's there. It has been all mapped into it. So what we can do now, we're going to do a bit of more CSS to make it look nicer. I'm just going to copy and paste in. There's a few lines of code that will do the magic job. We'll give the swiper a padding to top and bottom. Movie swiper, what we want to do is that we give a position absolute, make sure it's down the bottom with 20 pixels above. These two lines will make sure the swiper sits in the center of the screen, and also give a screen width of the 50%. Give a background of light black with some kind of a transparency and also a white box shadow. And you want to make sure the swiper slice sits in the middle, give a perfect width and height, and make sure the image takes the whole area. So once you save that, you go back to the browser. Hopefully that will be working. It's not. And let me check the reason why. Did I forget to import anything? I have double checked where the error is. It turns out this swiper CSS is a global CSS setting. It must be imported at the right beginning. So we're just going to copy that and paste it back to our app.js file. at the right top. So these are all outsourced CSS. And once you've done that, go back to the browser, reload it. It's working now. Look at that. Like the magic carousel that you can swipe around, and again have this 3D bending and spinning effects. Looks pretty cool, huh? And what's our next job? Our next job is once you click on any images, the preview images down below, everything else should change accordingly. How do we handle that change, right? So that change is 100% JavaScript and a React job. It has nothing to do with Swiper. Pretty much the Swiper just give you image loading CSS effect. You don't have to build this carousel yourself. And other than that, it does nothing. And back to our code editor, we're gonna have to do some kind of a clicking on the swipe slides and change the content in the banner. This is the tricky part, because we trigger that events, or we raise that events in the child component, which is the movie swiper over here, right? We click on the slides, and then that trigger event, the click events, will be handled in our parents component by changing all of those content state and hopefully the play button. So this has two different places. The events was raised at the child component, but events was handled at the parent component. How do we handle that? Right. Just remember that whenever you want to handle that events, you have to write the code majorly in that place. Since we're going to handle events primarily in the banner, so we're going to have to write the handle events function inside the banner as well. So what we're going to do is to look at the key identifier for us to trigger the click events. Just think about, when you click on this one, how come the background can change accordingly? They depend on what to make the change. It's actually, if you look at the JSON file I provided to you, it's the ID. Because every single JSON object or the JavaScript objects got a specific ID. These are unique, only belong to that object, and can never be reused. So if we can use the ID to identify which one you click, of course, everything is linked to the ID because we are using a single source of data for the movie. Here's I also want to highlight the idea of creating the data for one target at a single place. The principle of single source of truth. If you store your movies data everywhere or in different folders, and one day you change your movies data, you have to make a lot of changes. If you miss one, your data will be inconsistent. But here you store all your data in one place. Even though later on you probably want to change some features or values of this movie data, you only have one folder to change, one file to change. And everywhere else use this file will change accordingly. So that's the principle to follow. So here we're trying to catch the ID of each movie and to see the click events using that ID. So over here in the parents component banner, let's just create the events first. Constant, I'm going to do an arrow function. Handle slide change. Handle slide change equals to, we're going to use the ID to track everything. So ID is one of the variables that we passed in here. Arrow function basically means that we use the arrow to trigger that function. And inside here, so far we do not know what to do, so we're just going to console.log that ID to see if we can get that ID if we actually click it. So once we have that, we want to use this function, actually trigger this function inside our child component swiper slide. So we have to pass this function as the property to this component, the movie swiper component. How do we do that? We're just going to say slide change equals to, this is a property name, equals to handle slide change. That's the function name, right? So the property not only can be set to data, to a string, it can also be set to a function that we predefined in our parents component. So we define the function here, and we set that function as the value of the property called slide change. So this slide change will become a part of the child component of the movie swiper, and we could call it over here. We could consume that slide change gets passed in. This one is this property, and this property is this function. This function does this job. Okay, the logic is perfectly linked together. And now how are we going to raise the events to use this function inside our child component? It's right over here. Think about which one you're going to trigger. The image, right? We're going to click on the image down the preview, and then going to trigger the change. So here we're just going to raise that on click event eventually. And we're going to use another arrow function to call that property here, slide change. Brackets, inside here is the magical thing because we are mapping the data from the slide, remember? And the slide is the movie data, which is this one. And you can have all the properties in this object, not only the preview image that we used before, but also the ID. So here in this code, we used the property preview image before, we're now going to use ID again. So .slide ._ID. Don't miss the underscore, it won't work. You have to type in the property name exactly the same as how you set in the JSON file. Okay? So now we have that. As soon as we click on any of the image, this function will be triggered. This variable ID is going to be passed in. Because this function comes from the parents component, we restart events in the child. The parents component listened to that and found, oh, somebody click on me, and I'm going to console.log.id for you, right? So let's just see if this one is working. Open up the file, and let me just go to the console. Should have a unique key property. Yeah, that's right. That's one little bug we have to handle. So we do one data mapping. What it said is that whenever you do a data mapping in React, you have to have a key property. The key, we use the slide ID as well because that's the unique one. Belongs to everybody. So once you type in that, reload, that error goes away. So let's see if I try to click on one of those images, you can see that's 2 pops up in the console. I click on jailer, that's 4. I click on ape, that's 6. I click on the Little Mermaids, which is a good one, I actually watched it, and that pops up 11. So it's working, right? All the IDs are linked up together. The child component raises events, and in the parent component we found somebody click it, we handle that event and console.log.id, which is working. And now the next step is to change the background accordingly. How are we going to handle that? The key logic of the background and content change is this property called active. We only want to show the one with active status of true and hide all of those with active status of false, right? So every time you click on one preview image, will be one object showing off at the front, which is the true one. So the clicky ones should actually done a job of changing the active status. Whichever one we click on, we should turn that active of that object to true and set the remaining object active status to false. This is the logic behind it, right? So let's go back to here. So far, our movie object is still hard-coded without data mapping. So now is the time for us to arrange that magical data mapping. But before we do so, we're going to hide everything. So this is going to be a sad moment for us to disappear all this beautiful stuff we have just triggered, but I'll recover it very soon. And the background image will be hide so far. And let's see what's the child component used. We use the movie component, movie content. Here in the movie content, let's see if we have turn it on. Yeah, we turn it on with active. This one will be removed as well. What else we use? We used date and play button. Go to the date. This one is going to be hide. Remember in CSS, we set the original status to be hidden, and then when you turn on the active, it actually shows. Yeah. And let's see what else. The play button. The play button, we have a active class down at the end as well. We delete that. So sadly, if you go back to our browser, then nothing else gets to show because we hide them, except the carousel. Well, it looks still nice. And the background image, because we hard-coded it, that's why it can still show. If we save it, yeah, it disappears. Right. The data mapping for the movie component is coming now, so let's do a curly braces because we want to type in the JavaScript. First thing first, we want to check if the movie exists. If it exists, if it's truthy, we're going to double check if the movie's length is greater than 0. So we check that. If this one is truthy, we're going to do the mapping. So movie.map. This is the JavaScript, the higher order array function. You're going to have to learn all of these, like the map, reduce, filter, for each, and all of these. They are very, very useful. They can deal with heaps of data altogether. You don't have to write those for loops. In old days, we have to write for loops to handle massive data, repeating jobs. But now you can use these high order array functions to handle those. So what it does is that we take the whole array of the movie. This movie is the entire JSON, right? It's entire JSON data. We take the whole array, we map them into our movie component. So each movie, arrow function brackets, will be mapped into this movie component. So we just cut and paste it in right over here, right? So, but now each one has this background image. This image is not coming from our hard-coded image anymore. This is our demonstration image. It's actually coming from the image URL, the background image URL in our JSON file. So we have it. So let's just say, how do we access that? That source equals to movie.backgroundImage. So soon as we finish that, we should see something. Not yet, because we haven't set up the class yet. And the class name is okay, we just leave it like that. And what else we want to trigger on is the class. Inside here, we only set the class to BG image, but how do we turn on the active? Because only the active one will get to show. The inactive one will be hidden, right? So this is the magic thing about the React. Not only the JavaScript can be weaved into the HTMLs, but also it can be weaved into everywhere. So here what we do, we cut this part for now. I'm going to rewrite the class to a JavaScript. The class name can be a JavaScript. And inside it, I use backtick because we're going to do temporary literal. And the BG name is the original class name, but we're going to add more class name, which is a conditional setting, conditional JavaScript. We use the $sign, double curly braces to tell the computer that I want to write JavaScript in this bit. So we want to check if that movie is actually the active movie we are choosing. So the first one has been set active to true by default. And here we're just going to check if the movie dot active, if it's true, because if it's true, this one will show true. Like this, it's a boolean, right? If it's false, it will be false. So here, when you type in that, it will be either true or false. If it's true, I'm going to show that active status, turn on the active inside the class name. Otherwise, colon, this one will be undefined. So that's how you write the conditional class name, depending on the status of one object. So since we have that, and our data shows that our first one is true, if I go back to the browser, magically you will see that background image of the transformer comes back, right? Pretty cool, awesome, awesome, cool. Okay, so now what we're going to do is that we're going to reuse these skills in every child component because they are on and off, also depending on the active status of that movie component, the movie object. And also we're going to change the content, the actual thing inside it. If you look at the movie content right now, these are all hard-coded, but this data should come from the actual JSON data. And the way to do so, we're just going to pass in the movie as a property to the child component equals to movie. And I'm just going to copy that, excuse me for the laziness, and same for the play button as well. So we're just going to pass in the movie as the property for all of the child component. And inside the child component, let's do the complicated one first. We consume that property. Let's do object destructuring. So here you can have the movie for each one, and that movie should actually give the title image. So here we access, double check the property name in the JSON, what is called a title image as an abbreviation. That one is correct, and that looks all good to me. And also this one should be movie.ear. That looks okay to me as well. And this one should be movie.ageLimit, if I remember it correctly. Yeah, that's age limit. So we have that. All good. And the next one, this one, should be changed to the dynamic data movie length. And the last one, I'm just gonna movie.category. Yep, it's all showing up. This long bit, we used to have to hard code if we develop our website using the vanilla JavaScript or HTMLs, but now it comes from the JSON data where we could just say the movie.description. because description is one property being set in our JSON file. We just access that to read that, even though currently it's on order, it's been written in the lorem, but in reality you can rewrite those descriptions. And by the way, this JSON file in the real work should come from your database. We retrieve that from our backend and database file, and that's like a full stack project. But so far, this course is about the front end, so we have the JSON file ready for you there. And we have the description. The button is okay. The button is not dynamic. It has nothing to do with the movie data. Okay, cool. And once all of those done, the last step, which is the active, because if you look at the website so far, it's still not showing that content part because the content is being set to false. The active hasn't been turned on yet. And the way to do so is that we rewrite the class name like how we did before with the JavaScript. So backtick, we put in the first part, which is the content, and $, double curly braces. We're going to ask if the movie active is true. If it's true, okay, question mark. And we're going to turn on that active class. If it's not, we're going to be undefined. So it's very easy to handle. And if you look at that, the first one has been shown, right? Because the first one, it has been default set to true value. And the same thing happens to the play button and also the movie date. So here in the date, we're gonna pass in, remember in banner for date, we pass in the movie object for that as well. And here we just consume that property movie. This one should be each one's separate date. Date. However, for that we need to use our trick here as well for it to show or unshow, which is the conditional show of the class name. And I'm just going to copy and paste, change that class name to date, and that one gets to show. You see, pretty cool, huh? Last bit is the play button. The play button, the content itself has nothing to do, but we do need a bit of more coding in terms of this one because it's quite long, but that's okay. I'm just going to cut it off. Backtick, put in our static class name, and then we put in our conditional class name. Remember, for the play button, we take the movie property as well. The movie property coming from here. And then we're just going to ask if that movie has been active. If it is yes, we turn on the active class. Otherwise, it's undefined. All done. And for the first one, the trailer button gets show up. And now you have the perfect landing page. Except the click events haven't been working yet, but everything else looks okay for me now. And now let's work on the click events. As soon as we click on one, based on the ID of it, we can track the one we click on, and all the background content and the date should change. How do we handle that? Going back to the browser, the code editor, the banner, and here instead of logging the ID on the console, we have to do something. Let's just say that what we can do here is that we're going to do another mapping function to find out the one you click on and set the active status of the one you click on to true and reset the remaining active to false. So the way to do so is that we create a new movie dataset. New movies equals to the original movie, which is the one that we get from the RESTful API. We map that. So what it does is that it will check every single movie inside it to give the arrow function. First thing is to set every one of them active false, because we want to set them to false first and pick up the one we clicked and set that one to true, right? This is the logic. How do we pick the one that we click on? Because we are mapping through every single one of them, you can write an if function here, if statement here. So just if the movie underscore ID, if the movie in the movie datasets triple equals to the movie ID that we click on. This ID is the one that we click on, we just console log it on the console. If these two are equal, basically means we found the one that we have clicked. We set specifically that movie's active status to true, right? This is how we write an if function. And after that, once we've done a new job for that movie, we just return that movie back. So here you will have a new movie variable, which is a new array. In this new array is the adjusted array of the original movie array. The original movie array will check every single one of the movie. First, we set all of their active status to false, and then we check if the movie's ID equals to the movie's ID we click on. If they equal, we found the one we click on. We set the one we click on's active status to true, and then we return that movie. So you update your array, right? And once it's done, remember, how do we actually reset the status of the movie for the entire DOM? Which is this one, set movie, right? We want our movie to be the new movie, not the original movie that we get from the data set, because the original one only have the first one set to be true, the remaining all false. So we have to adjust that status by set movies to new movies, right? Soon as we've done this variable movie will be reset to the new movie you just worked out. And hopefully everything should be working okay now. If we back to the browser and we click on one of these, look at that, magically happening. Everything else worked out so fine. And you can see this transition is very smooth. Because we have set a CSS for it, it has a transition duration of half second or 1 second. Generally, I reckon this could be a good one because it has a really high score. And well, don't recommend to watch it in detail because it's pretty horrible. I would say it's not the most comfortable moment in your life. And there's a couple good ones. You can double check. There's pretty much all 2023's movies here. The popular one, the ongoing one, or the one on schedule. Alright, we have pretty much done the banner part, and there might be some few adjustment work. Let me just think what else we can do. I have just realized that we haven't done a very important part on our browser, on the banner page, which is the trailer. Once we click on it, there's supposed to be a Modal pops out. So we haven't done the Modal yet. In this video, I designed the Modal purely by CSS instead of using the Bootstrap built-in Modal because I believe that one is less handy than we're building ourselves. So think about where the Modal is supposed to be located. And if we click on the play button, the Modal comes out. And supposedly, the Modal should be located in the trailer. So we go to that play button. And then over here, once we finish the trailer, we should have a Modal underneath it. So what we're going to do is we create a Modal right below it. But remember I told you that in React, the return brackets cannot hold two components altogether. So what we're going to do, we're going to have to wrap it with a angle brackets. That's like the React frame. You can wrap everything around. So over here, we can add a new component or new divs underneath it. It doesn't affect your page. You will see the page looks exactly the same. It's just to give you a wrapper so you can wrap things around more effectively. And we know that the Modal is definitely going to be a separate component. So instead of writing the code straight away underneath, what I'm going to do, I'm going to build a component called Modal.jsx. And RFCE, we create a boilerplate. And right below it, we need the Modal CSS. So import that Modal CSS right above. Here we go. And inside the Modal, what we're going to have a brackets. And then div will create a new class called movie Modal. So, and then inside the Modal, we're going to think about what does the Modal contains. The Modal should have a background image, the background effects, which is a blurry effect. And also the Modal should contain the trailer video, right? That's the key things we need to think about. And also it should have a close off button, because once we opened up the Modal, it should allow the user to close it off once they finish watching. So the first thing we want to put in is the Modal close. So we give it a class name, a Modal close button. And inside it is supposed to be an icon. So we just go to the icon, find the close one. This one looks good to me. and paste it over here. So now we have the close button inside the Modal. And the second thing is the video. For this education course, I used a YouTube iframe video for two reasons. First, we don't have the actual a trailer video. That's going to be copyright issue if I have it. So more than likely you will find those trailer videos all on YouTube. So I'm just going to use the YouTube iframe. This thing's directly given by YouTube. When you go to YouTube, you right click on the video, and in the drop box you will find an embed code. You just click the embed code, copy the embedment, and this thing will be copied to your cardboard straight away. So you don't have to do anything. Once you have it, you just copy and paste in. And we know that in our Modal, we're definitely going to have a property called movie. So we just take that movie in. So we can show the movie's video, we can show the movie's title. These properties are coming from our JSON, because in JSON we have our video link, we have our title. Those things are specifically for the trailer video. And once we put the video here, the source actually the YouTube embedment source. It'll trigger the YouTube video for you. Okay, that's the logic how it works. So we have that. Pretty much we have done the Modal. And the second thing is that we have to create a function to turn on and turn off the Modal. Using the Modal close off button, we can close off the Modal. But where do we turn on the Modal? It's absolutely going to be in the play button. So let's go back to the play button and then import the Modal first. Modal. And that's the Modal from the Modal we created, not the one from the Bootstrap. So we will import that. And for the Modal, we want to double check, because how many Modals do you think we're going to have in the end? That's going to be how many movies we're going to have. Each movie is going to have a Modal, right? So we have 15 movies in JSON file. So we supposedly we have 15 Modal. But we do not want to show them all together because that will confuse the user, right? We only want to show the Modal for the movies that has been active. So remember when the browser, this one is currently not working because there's something wrong with the code. I'll fix that very quickly. Remember in the browser, whenever you click on the carousel down the bottom, the movie background changes. This should happen to the Modal as well. So the Modal will only be shown to the active movie. So let's just write a bit more JavaScript, movie.active. If the movie is active, we're going to show this Modal. Not triple, just double. So we just double check that. Otherwise, the Modal wouldn't be shown, right? That's one thing we want to make sure. Now the second thing is, we need to decide if the Modal has been opened or closed. So we're going to have a couple of features here, a property here. First, we put in the movie property. This movie property refers to this movie property that we pass over here, and we pass down to the child component Modal. And when we go to Modal, that movie is there. We object destructure it, and we can use the properties of it underneath. And once we save it, let's see if that works. Yeah, it goes back. The reason why this thing got lifted up is because we haven't given the CSS to the Modal. So if I just copy and paste in the Modal CSS, this thing should be okay. More than likely, when you create a Modal on a browser, we will give the position absolute because we want it to stay there regardless of everything else. Okay, and we just tell the browser what is the location, what is the background, give a blurry effect of the background, give a box shadow, make sure it stands out from the rest, sitting on the right top. And also for the movie iframe, we give a maximum width and height as well, just in case some videos go too large. This is the movie close button that we just put in. We want it to be in black color, in the white color, and make the font size slightly larger. So once we save that, go back to the browser, you can see this one recovers. So that's the Modal, the play button. We haven't finished linking the features yet. This will allow the Modal to have the movie data to show, but what about the open and close of the Modal? Then we have to create a new function there. So remember what I tell you, the child component will read the events, but in the parent component handle the event, right? The Modal itself will read the events inside the Modal, whether it's opened or closed. But the position to handle that opening and closing of the modal should be in the parent component, which is the play button. So we set up everything here. And to do so, we're just going to use some React hook. We use the useState hook again. And then we put that here, set a status for the modal. Either it's open or closed, we have to set a status. It's modal, comma, set modal. And that equals to useState. The initial value, which is the initial state of the modal that we pass in, is false because it's always closed, right? No browser opens the web page and you see the modal pops up straight away. We want the user to click on the button and then open up the modal. So the initial state for the modal is false. That means it's closed off. And once we click on something, it should change it to true. Basically means that we turn it off. And how do we do that? So here we're just going to do a JavaScript function, toggle modal. That's going to be an array function, fat arrow, double curly braces. So whenever you click on that button, you should have the status change to true or change to the opposite side. And we wanted to set modal to whatever is opposite to the current situation. So that's going to be untrue modal. So if the modal is false, you set modal to true. This means untrue. This means the opposite side. If it's true, it's going to be false. If it's false, it's going to be true. So it's always set a modal to the opposite of what it was originally to be. Okay? So once we have that function, we should use that function. Remember, the events has to be raised inside a child component, not a parent component. So we pass that as a property to the child component. Toggle modal equals to. This is the property name, right? And we link that property value to this function over here. Toggle modal. This one is the function. So now your child component should have that property. So we're just going to copy that. Toggle modal. Go into our modal and import it as a second property. So whenever you click on the close button, it should trigger that toggle modal as well, right? That's one more thing. If you look at the modal CSS, you will see the modal itself is actually invisible because I set opacity to 0, visibility hidden. But to turn it on or make it show off, we have to add an active class to the modal, same as what we did before. So you can have the opacity 1, visibility visible. How do we do that? It's the same thing over here. In the play button, we already set up the status of the modal. If the modal is true, we should allow it to show off. If the modal is false, we should hide it. So this modal status should be passed as a property to the modal component as well. So over here, we just set a new property called status, and that one equals to the modal. This modal is actually the status of it. We pass it in as a property. So we have a 3 property for the modal, and we jump to the modal, we add in that status as well. So we have it here. And now everything is coming to working on this active status, the active class name, inside the modal for that one. So like how we did before, we cut that. We want to use a JavaScript backtick to put in the static class name, and then $, double curly braces. We're going to do a bit of a template literal. And here we're just going to ask what's the status of the modal. If the status modal is true, we're going to turn on the active. Otherwise, undefined. Same logic as before. Okay? And then over here, we actually need to enable the click function of the modal close button. So on click, we're going to have to trigger this toggle modal function. Just put it over here. So whenever you click the close modal button, the modal will be toggled to the opposite status, and it will close off because the status changed. These are all linked together. Okay? Going back to the previous parent component, that looks all fine to me, and double checking the browser to see if it works. We click on the modal, not yet coming out. Let me double check what's going on. Yeah, of course, we haven't added the click button to the click function to the play button yet. That's the one last step I forget. So just beside it, on click, and then we're just going to pass in that function toggle. It toggle works on two sides. It works on the parent component to open it. It also works on the child component to close it. So one function solves all the problem. On click. Going back to the browser again. See, that mode that magically shows off. Close it off, it disappears. Let us change to another movie. Watch the trailer. Close off. No problem at all. Swipe it. Swipe it. The swiper works really, really cool. Watch the movie. Watch the trailer. Close it off. Has no problem at all. Did I miss something over here? Let me see. And the movie date. That's supposed to be the on before. And going back, yeah, it shows on a 2 line now. Because it looks better showing on 2 line. It's one same. You can see it's kind of a text mask effect allow you to see through the background. And everything else looks perfectly fine for me so far. Yep, that's pretty much what we can do for the banner. And one last thing missing out is the whenever we click on the navigation, the color should change. But I'll come to that when we go to the section, because the navigation should navigate you to the certain section. So far, we have not built any other sections, so there's no way to click it. And yeah, just leave to the later section when we have that chance to add in the active class for this navigation. Right. And now let's just move on to the main part, which is the section body part. Closing off a few of these components that have already been built. And over here in the app.js file, we can see we have our header and we have our banner. So down here, we should have a main, but we haven't created that part yet. So I'm just going to create it right now. In the page, create a new file called main.jsx. You can add in section straight away over here, but I like to wrap it in the main and then import main here on my app.js page. That'll make my code even cleaner, right? So RFCE to create that boilerplate for main. So under main, that's going to be a very simple line of code, just main, like that. So nothing else, because this one is just going to wrap all the sections in here. And then we're going to create a CSS file for main as well, because this CSS file will hold all the general settings for the main and also for the section, right? Because later on, when you build individual sections, the CSS file is going to deal with that individual section, not the entire global thing. But you want to have some global settings or global CSS for your sections. The best place to put in is at the main part. So what I will do, I'll copy and paste in the CSS setting for the main. I'll explain a bit. The main pretty much gonna have a body 100% width, and also have a dark background, and also minimum height is 100 VH. This thing, I'll comment it out for now, and I'll show you later on. Let's just import a few more things. Import main.css. Yep. Let's see if it works. Not yet, because we haven't built any schedule or trend or block section yet. We need to build at least one section for the CSS to show off, because there's no section for them. But for the section, we also have a predefined paddings for the section, the width, the animations, the Z index for the section. We can also predefine the H1 and other titles in the section, because these are pretty much reusable in every single section. So if it's a very common settings, you can just predefine them and put the global settings in the main CSS. In that way, all the sections will share this CSS code. You don't have to repeat them. And the first section we're going to build is called schedule. Schedule.jsx. And that's going to hold our movie for the next week or next month. RFCE schedule. And we're going to build a CSS file for that as well. Import it. Yep. So once we've done that, we're going to have to import the schedule into our main. So currently the main is empty, there's nothing in it. So we're just gonna import the schedule. As you can see, this one got imported straight away. And now we have the schedule here. They only have one rows in it. Going back to the browser, nothing happens because we haven't created anything yet. And now we're just gonna jump to the schedule, do a bit of coding to set up a section really quick. So section, I'm gonna give it ID of schedule. And then maybe the same thing for the class name. And inside, we're gonna have a container. But I want to make it container fluid because it's really wide and it will take the whole screen width. Container fluid. Inside the container fluid, we can have one row to hold the section title. And that section title is going to be the h4. I'll give the class name. Section title. And then because the first part is scheduled, so the section title is opening this week. And let's see if that one has come out yet. Not yet. Oh, my bad. I just forgot to import the main into our app. We import the schedule section into main, but we forgot to import the main into our app. So I'm just going to import it here. So once you import that, you can see this thing comes out. Really cool, huh? It gives you that underneath border straight away, and it has its title ready for you. So the reason why that could happen is because we have predefined the section over here. So for each section, you will have the section title, which is this one, opening this week. And you will have a section title after, which is a pseudo element. The pseudo element has a very small height of 5 pixels. The width takes half of the screen. And you can see, this is like a half of the screen, but it transits from solid color to transparent using this trick, linear gradient 90 degree. This is the main color transparent. It tells the computer that I have a two transition of 3 colors. So I wanted the front bit to be really strong and the last tail bit to be transparent. And that looks exactly like that. The initial part is a very solid same color, but the tail part is sort of going to fade away and become transparent. And if I turn on this main dot before, so far if you look at it, it still have a very good smooth connection, but if you change the image, you will see the difference. If you change to a lighter one, the dark one wouldn't be very obvious. If you change it to a light one, not this one, this is a ghost one. This one has a very light background image, and you will see there's a clear cutoff between the banner section and also the first section. Well, it looks still decent, but not cool enough. I want to make sure it looks cool enough. And what we can do is to add on this few lines of code to give a smooth transition, which is a pseudo element that we add to the main before. We want to make sure that it takes the whole width. It gives a 200 pixel height, and it's going to be background black with a filter blur. This filter blur, 50 pixels, creates that blurry connection effects and all the smooth transition happening. Look at that. And look at that. This clear cutoff line is gone. And it's sort of like the background is merged into this dark theme, this dark material environment, and it leads to the next section to happen, which is really cool, huh? Alrighty, and if you change to another one, if the background is originally black, that's even cooler, because very smoothly, gently, it's likely to jump out of it. That's what it is for. Once we've done that, we're going back to this schedule. Let's just keep coding the rest of the part. So the first row will contain the title, and we will have our second row. That's going to be a filter. that we want to use to filter the movie we want to see. So inside here, supposedly we're going to build a filter right now, but I will do it later by just putting in a paragraph called filter. So we'll come back to this later to finalize the building. And that's the filter. Ideally, I should wrap this one into a row so they won't mess our layout, because it's a Bootstrap's framework works pretty fine for me. And below this row, we're going to have another row. And this is the part where we map in all the movies. So we give empty 5. Empty 5 is a margin to top 5. It's a built-in Bootstrap thing. You can give the class name and write in the CSS margin to top how many pixels you want, but it's just a handy way to have that margin straight away if you do not want to give a class name or overcode it. So remember that our schedule should be taking the data from the movie as well, like how we did for the banner. So in the banner, we fetch data from the RESTful API, the JSON file, which is this one. So here we want to show the user all the movies and give them a filter function, so we should fetch data again. So over here, we're just going to use few functional components hook. We're going to use the useState hook, useEffect hook, and down here, this time we're going to do it slightly different. Let me show you why really quick. First, we're going to have the data state set data. We use the useState hook to set up the data states, which can hold the original movie data. Initially, that's going to be an empty array. And then we're going to have another state called movie. This is the actual movie we are going to show in this section. One is to hold the original data. The other one is to show the data, show the movie. How come we have to create two states to deal with one set of data? The reason is because we have a filter function here. Once we're done the filter, we do not want to touch the original movie data, right? We only want to show the user of the movie that has been filtered. And that's why we need two states to handle this job. Movies, set movies, and useState. Empty array. Pretty much these two lines are the same thing. It's just to handle different jobs. And I'm going to create another one. Not for now, but later on. So in the fetch data, going back to the banner where we can reuse some of this code, just going to copy that. And I will put it right over here. Instead of setting the movie data, here we want to set the data, which is this one. So I'm just going to delete that. Because remember, it's used to hold the original movie data. We don't want to touch that. We want to hold it as what it is. But the movie is the one that we have manipulated, filtered, changed. So we have two state variables to handle two different jobs. When we fetch the data, we want to store it at a safe place. No one can touch it. And when the browser mounts your component, we're going to do the fetch data function. We fetch data from the RESTful API, and then we set our data status change. Okay? That's how we're going to handle it. And right beneath it, we're going to write a new useEffect hook. In here, what we want to do, because we have done the fetch data, inside the fetch data, we have set data to data. So this one should have some value in it instead of an empty array. And now we want to set our initial movie to the data of the original movie. So here, in this useEffect, we write set movies to data. So this data is the data state, which holds the original movie data. And we set our initial movie data to that original movie data as well. And then when we map into our web component, we use the movie instead of the data, because the data is always going to be the initial JSON data, untouched ever. But this movie can be changed later on when we do the filters, or when we do the search, or whatever manipulation you want to handle. Normally, when you have a website that you have a filter, search, or some kind of a data manipulation that you want to do, you will have to have a place to keep the original data. Otherwise, your data changes, you have to recall the backend again. So once we've done that, we are ready for the mapping. So down here in our third row, what I can do is to map our movie. Just double check that we have our movies ready and the movie's length is greater than 0. So it's not an empty array. And if that happens, we'll map it into our movie component. And so far, I'm just going to map it into a simple one. Movie. And let's just do a mapping. So a single movie, map it into, let's say we give the H1 title just for testing. Movie dot say title, maybe. Movie dot title. Here we have to give it a key. So we just do a testing. If we get the data successfully, we put the data into the data status, the data states, and then we put the data in the data status in the movie, and then we map the movie's data into a single movie, and then show it on the browser as the H1. Let's see if it works. Yeah, it works perfectly fine. You can see all of those 15 movies title has been mapped and listed around on the browser. That works perfectly fine. And the next thing is that we do not just want to show user the title. We want to create a card to hold the movie component. So over here in the component, we're going to create a component called card to hold the movie component. So RFCE, we have the card, and then we're going to do a CSS as well. A CSS. So let's see how are we going to design the card. The card is going to be a very narrow one. We wanted to take the column of 2 on a large screen, because remember one row contains 12 columns. So this one, a single card is going to take 2 columns. So the entire row can actually take 6 cards. 2 tab. But we want this one to change. If it's on the middle size screen, we want it to become 4 columns. And if it's on a small size screen, we want it to take half. Yep. And once that's done, we're going to go to the movie card. In this movie card, what we're going to have, one is the image, the movie preview image. And we'll give it a class of image fluid. Image fluid is a built-in class name in Bootstrap that allows your image to adjust itself to fit the space. Otherwise, you have to set the image in the CSS. This will give you a very handy way to do so. And then we're going to have a paragraph to tell the movie's length and category. But think about where the card is at. It's in our schedule, right? So eventually we're going to map this movie into the card, movie's card. So far we just map it into the H1 title, which is not good. If I delete this H1, what we can do here is that we map this movie into a card, which is the card we just built here. So I save that, and then here we just call that card. So we can map our movie into that card. This card will contain the movie property. If we give the ID, the key, that will be the movie's ID. and then we give the property movie to hold the data of that movie, right? So this is how we do it in the code. So once we have that done, our code should have that movie property, which we define here, and we can consume that property over here, movie. And over here, you can access all the movie information, like what you can see in the JSON file. All of these values are available in the code right now. So in the image source, what we're gonna do is we're gonna retrieve that image source using the movie property dot. Let's have a look at the property name, preview image. So that's the one we want. So we go to preview image. And in the paragraph, what we want to show in the code, one thing is the movie's name, or the movie's length. So we just go to movie.length. Separate it. Another thing we want to show is the movie's category. So we want to show those two things, because these two are the property of movies, as you can see, and the JSON file category length. So we access that. And underneath the paragraph, we want to have more content for the user to see. That's going to be the movie card content. In here, I will give it h4. This is going to hold the movie's title. And beneath it, we're going to have a div. These will be holding our card icons. Inside, we're going to have a add icon, which is this one, and also a play icon, which is this one. So we have two icons. So that'll pretty much set up our movie's card. And we haven't done anything to the CSS yet. So what I will do, I'll put in those. I'll explain for you. So this defines our movie card, which is this one. At the border of none, give the black background, give the box shadow so it can stand out. And also, we have to set a pseudo element. So whenever the user hovers on the card, a black shade cover should pop up. That's what it is for. It covers the whole area of the card, and it has a semi-transparent background, initially hidden, but once we hover on it later on, here, once we hover on the card, the content and the before will show. So initially, everything inside here, the content, is invisible, but as soon as the user hovers on the movie card, this thing will show. That's what it is about. So we give a definition for the paragraph, make it color sort of a white. We define the content, define the h4, and also we give a sort of a small bar right underneath h4 as a pseudo element. This is the contents icon, and we define the hover effect. Let's see if we go back to the browser, it works. Look at that. It works already. But it seems to me that some things have not been shown yet, which is the paragraph underneath and the hover effect is not working. Let's see what else we forget. Oh, we forget to import the card, CSS. Card, I forgot a slash. Card slash. Soon as we import that, it should be working. Just double checked. It turns out to be a small typo. I typed the movie wrong, so just gonna replace everything on this page, and I'm gonna replace the movie card. Replace it with movie card. So more than likely, when you have something not working, just don't be concerned. It'll be either you forgot to import something or you have a typo in your code. I'm just going to replace all the things here. And once we save that, we're going back. You see, that thing comes out straight away. Yeah, it's just a matter of typo. So our schedule part looks to be working now. So this hover effect is a shade. Initially, it was hidden. So once the user hover on the card, this shade will come out. And also the content inside the shade will come out as well. This underneath, you can see a semi-transparent small bar is what we created here in the pseudo elements. This part, this part. That's the pseudo element to create a small bar. You give it a height, give a background in linear effect, and make sure it stands out. Value. The next thing is the major key thing in this section is the filter that we want to put in over here. So what I would do, the card and the CSS, banner, these are not important anymore. Let's see if we have any CSS for the schedule. Nope, it looks like the schedule has no specific CSS, or some, just for the filter. We'll create a filter right over here where it says filter. Supposedly, the filter should come as a list. But if we write our list here, it'll be heaps of code. And remember how we create a navigation? The navigation is also a list. We prepare the data before we use the data, right? So the same logic should apply here as well. We do not hardcode our list data right over here. So what we're going to do is that we create our filter list data right above. Just for demonstration purpose, I put this data inside the schedule file. In the real world, this filter list array should ideally be put on a separate file stored in the data in this folder. We have the nav list data. You should have another file called filter list data, and then you export that in the data file and import that over here. But to demonstration, to make things easier, otherwise we have to jump back and forth, I just leave it here on this page. So we have 6 types of filter. The first one is to show all the movies, and we have a romance, action, thriller, horror, and adventure. The same logic, the active has been set only the first one to true, the remaining are all false. And of course, we only want the user to see one of the category at a time, and initially they're supposed to see all, okay? And once we have that, we're going to add a new state. Because we're going to deal with the filter, we're going to have a filter state, which is called filters, and set filters, and useState. Here, our initial data for the filter comes from the list we just created, which is the one above, the array. So it's not an empty array initial status. If I could type brackets. The initial one should be the filter list data that we created right above. So we put that in as the initial data for the filters. And now we can use the thing we created here in our filter variable, or in our filter variable. Some people may ask, why don't you just use that variable straight away? Well, you can, but in React, everything is supposed to be properly handled via state. But what if someday you want to change your filters data, you want to add a few more? It's better to handle that with a state. It's more professional and more safe. And now we're just going to map our filter in the filter area. The way to do so, we're going to put on the curly braces and then create a list called filters. And inside, we will do a mapping. It looks like I already done a div for that. Yeah, it looks like it's unnecessary for a div. It's supposed to use a UL, so let's just delete that. Use the UL for the filter instead of a div because we're going to holding a list. So inside here, I'm going to type in the JavaScript filters.map. Map contains each of the filters we just created, and we're going to map that into a list. The list is supposed to contain, here inside it should show the filter's name, and also each items in the mapping should have a key. So just to give a key, a filter.id, and then finalize that mapping. Let's see what's happening so far. Yeah, it's on the browser already. It's just that we haven't given the CSS style to it, so it looks pretty ugly. But you can see it's there. The mapping successful. And now in the schedule.css, we're just going to give the filter style to it. Schedule filter style will give a display flex wrap, allow it to wrap around when the screen size shrinks. Give the gap a 10 pixels, margin to top 50. And for the list, we want to make sure it stands out, so it has a white color. And it has a background color close to black, but slightly different. Transform to uppercase, and also on hover and on active, we want the background to change to the same color. Save that, make sure we have imported schedule.css, and go back to the browser. You can see it's there. If you hover on it, the background color changes. But the thing that hasn't happened yet is the active status. Supposedly, the first one should be active, and its background color should be orange as well, because we say so. It's active true, and when it's active, it's supposed to be the same color for background. The reason why it's not happening yet is because we haven't done so in the JavaScript down here. We have to tell the computer when it's active, when it's going to be active. So, few more line of code. Here, we'll give it a class name. This class name is going to be purely JavaScript, so we give the curly braces, and then backtick, $, double curly braces. We ask if the filter is active. If it is yes, give the class name active. Otherwise, show undefined. Save it, and then back to the browser. You can see the first one has been changed to orange, even without hovering. The reason is because it's active, right? And once that's done, it's pretty much looking good from the outside. But one last thing is the trigger the filter function is the key soul for this part. How do we do that? First thing to think about, where do we trigger that filtering function? Wherever the user click on the list item. So whenever they click on the list, that function should be triggered. So if this part again should have an onClick function somewhere. So we write that function right above. I call it handle filter movies equals to, this time we're going to take a second source to think about what it takes to filter the movie. How come the computer knows what to use to categorize them? I already said that word, category, right? We have to tell the computer which category you're trying to filter. So the category must be a variable that we pass in here for the filter to work. We pass in one variable. And then here, we just don't hurry to write that function. We just console.log that category to see if it works. So this handle filter movies is the function when we click on and pass in that category. So how do we pass that in? We put in the filter list item onClick events. Soon as the user click it, it should trigger that function. This should also be passed in as an arrow function. But how do we know the category of the movie? The category of the movie is contained in the JSON data. See here? We have the category here. And then when we map that data, the data also contains the category name. This category name is going to be the same as the category name set in the movie. So we could perfectly use the filter list name property to find the category. So here we're just going to say filter.name. There you go, and you have the category. Let's just see in the console to see if our setting is actually working. Turn on the console. And once we click on it, romance pops out on the console, action, thriller, horror, adventure. Go back to all. It works all perfectly fine, right? So that's it. Close the console. Now, the function seems like taking the category is successful. The next job is to think about how do we use that category to filter things out. this is again the time that we rely on the JavaScript higher order array function. So let's say that you have your movies data originally all stored in your data states variable. This is what we created initially. So we want to filter the movies using the original movie data over here. So we say data.filter. .filter is a JavaScript higher order array function. You just need to tell the computer what criteria you want to use to make a filter, and it will filter out the things for you directly. So here we're taking the movie, and we want to filter out the movie whose category is the same as the category that I click in, right? We know that previously we've done a console.log. We can console.log the category that we click in, but we want to find in the movie array, the data array, the same movie with that category. So we say movie fact arrow movie.category triple equals to category. These two are different. The first category is the property of the movie. We want to see the movie whose category basically means going to here, category, 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 right? The movie whose category triple equals to the category we passed in. The thing we passed in is the filter's name as a category. Remember? If these two are equal, basically means that we found that category of the movie and we want to filter them out. Soon as you filter them out, you want to put it into a new variable to store it. So you const filtered movie equals to that. And then set movie. Because as soon as we have the new filtered movie, we need to reset the movie states. So the movie states can be remapped in our DOM like this. So every time you change the filter, the movie states should change as well. So this one, we pass in that new variable. Ideally, this isn't complete yet. There's a couple of other lines to be written, but so far, ideally, this should be working. Let's try one. Not yet, because I haven't put in a few other lines before it gets to work. Let me finalize the whole thing, let me test out. Firstly, for this useEffect hook, we didn't put in a dependency. Previously, we have a dependency of empty array, basically means that it depended on nothing. It only be working one time. But for this one, we want to make sure that it only will be triggered for this effect hook whenever the data changes. So we have to put in that one. As soon as you put in that one, we have this handle movie, given the category name. Back to the browser. Yeah, it works straight away. See? That's how it works. To make the line even simpler, there's a repeating. You've done a certain job and return a new array, and you assign that to a new array name, a variable name, and you pass in here. Instead, why don't we just cut and put it in straight away? So you just change 2 lines of code into 1 line of code. See if it works. It's still working, right? And it's not complete yet. If you look at it, it has a problem. When you click on the filter, the active filter doesn't change. It still stays at the first all. Supposedly, when you click on romance, the romance should become orange, but when I leave the mouse, it goes back to black. How are we going to change the active status of the filter? It's also going to be done over here. And also the second problem, if you click on all, it disappears. Nothing happened. So there's a few bugs we have to fix before we move on. Let's finish the easy bug. We have to check if the user have clicked on the category of all. Because if they click on all, basically means you don't have to do any filtering. You just show all the movies, right? So if category triple equal to all, what we're gonna hear is to set movie to the original data. Remember, the original data is what we retrieved from the RESTable API and we store it in the set data, and that data will never ever be touched again. It's always stay as the same as the original. We put it in the data variable here, right? We only do the data changing using another variable called movies, which will handle the filtered data. But if the user choose all, basically means that they want to see the original data, so we set the movies back to the original states. That's how we handle it. And then we put a line here, return. Return means that we're going to escape from this function. The remaining code will not be executed. Okay? And then once you do that, if you click all again, everything comes back. On again, everything comes. That's how we handle it. Okay. And the second bug is the active status of the filter. And remember when we set up the filter, the array, there's a property called active. We can use this one, true and false, to determine which one is active, which one is not. And active one should have a background color of the theme color. So let's just handle that. Right before, we're going to do filter.map. Just give it more lines so you can see clearly. Inside here, we're going to filter out, we're going to find out the one that has been clicked on. That will be filter. First, we set all filters active to false. And then we want to find the one that has been clicked and set that active to true. So using what? Using the category name, that one is perfectly fine. If the filter's name equals to the category that has been passed in, and then we want to set that filter is active to true. And then last step is to return that filter once we find it. It looks like it's all fine, right? But not yet. We only find out the new active filter and it changes active status to true. But look at this. We haven't reset the filter states. So the last step, previously we need to assign this to a variable and then pass that variable to the reset function, but now you learn the new skills of merging two lines of code together. We're just going to cut it, set filters to that, all done. Right? This is a very nested code, but it's a very, very professionally done. And it's a saved line. And if you look at that, it's just past the 100 lines for this page, which is not too bad. And if we go back to the browser, if we click on it, you can see that active status gets removed off. The second one is on. It's all working perfectly now. Okay? All right. And now we have pretty much finalized the parts for this schedule section. And the following parts I'm going to be fastening the speed because it's a lot of work just reuse the skills that we developed in the initial part of the course. And so I'm just going to fasten my speed and finalize the remaining two sections. Pretty much it's about data mapping and also swiping. It's a very, very similar stuff for you to practice. If you show my initial introduction video, my suggestion is that you pause the video or close off the video now, because you know what I'm going to build for the remaining part. You try to build on your own. This is the way to learn. And once you finalize the building that, if you got stuck or somewhere you feel confused, go back to the video and keep watching it, and you can practice a lot. And the remaining two parts is pretty much all about data mapping again, and also reuse the skills that we learned for the swiper. Let me just jump in and do that right now.